My psycho boyfriend won't leave me alone as he's convinced that I'm cheating on him based off a series of photos that he says are convincing evidence that I'm actually cheating on him. But despite the fact that the girl in the photo is literally not me and me proving over and over again that it's not me, my boyfriend refuses to accept logic, saying that I betrayed his trust by cheating on him despite the fact that he literally has no evidence of this. Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things out, my boyfriend has been at me every single day for a week over a photo that he saw while I was out with my friends. I thought everything was fine before this, but I guess I was wrong, and honestly I have no idea why he's acting like this. This all started last weekend when I was out with my friends who I had not seen in a year due to moving very far away. We went to an outdoor concert for cheap in our small town after I moved back, just so we could have fun and dress up in costumes so we could hang out and see each other. One thing to note is that the friends I was with barely drink, and we're talking like maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and they never go out as well. So of course, I was very excited that they wanted to go out with me for once. I would also like to mention that I had not been out more than once within the whole year I had been away, since I really just don't like going out with my friends. So I do not normally do this either. A few days after we had went to this concert, my boyfriend texted me a photo that looked like me, saying that I looked like I was about to kiss someone in the background of one of the professional photos that were being taken there. But I told him many times that this was not me. This girl had curly hair, she was wearing what I thought was like a big black coat, and her face shape did not match mine. At first I thought he was joking. I was wearing a skin-tight black long-sleeve dress, I had wavy hair, and I had a headband with bunny ears on my head. I laughed it off thinking it was a joke, and I told him it wasn't me while pointing out everything that was proving me right. Well, a couple days later, he texted me again bringing it back up, but I again told him that it wasn't me, and I explained everything that was different between the girl and I. But here's where it gets crazy because he literally did not believe me. He kept calling her my twin and saying it wasn't normal how defensive I got the first time that he brought it up, but I kept explaining how it was not me, and I didn't know what else to tell him. Well, he pretended to believe me, but that was not the end of it. The next time I saw him, he brought it up again, but in person. I then proceeded to laugh, and I said to him, "Why would I cheat on you in a place where all of your friends are at, a photographer is taking photos, and in a public space where I know everybody there?" I then proceeded to tell him how I'm literally 5 foot tall, and the person this girl was kissing was shorter than her. There is literally no one in our town who is over the age of 19 that would be in the 4-foot range. And I sort of giggled when I said this because I didn't think it was that serious. The issue ended being brought up a couple more times, and at this point I was getting so fed up. Tonight it was brought up again for what felt like the 10th time in a row, and I was so mentally drained and exhausted from this conversation that I just started telling him to prove that I cheated on him. But he wouldn't stop calling me a cheater, saying that I was with other men when I didn't answer fast enough, and accusing me of so much. And he never acted like this before. He then freaked out at me for telling him to prove it, and going on and on for hours, to the point where I had to stop texting him to keep myself mentally sane. Eventually, I was so desperate that I started scouring the Facebook page to try and find all the photos of that night to figure out who the girl was, just to show him once and for all that it wasn't me. Well, after searching for a while, I finally found her. I sent him all the photos of this girl, and I put them with the blurry photo that he sent me, thinking that it was finally over. But he responded by saying, "I can't see her makeup. I can only see her black eyes." And at this point, I was so done. Like, I never ever do my makeup. I only wear mascara because I don't know how to do makeup and make it look good on my skin. I got ready with my friend who went to school for makeup, and she actually helped me and gave me tips, so I felt confident enough to try it for once. But I did not wear black eyes. The photo was too blurry to see the makeup. It was just a blob, but apparently he could. I then proceeded to stop answering him because I was so over this, and eventually he gave in and apologized, telling me that he was wrong and whatnot because I simply just gave up. I thought it was all fine until I was playing video games with my same friend who's good at makeup, and he actually messaged me a new photo, and this new photo was a completely different girl. He then said to me, "This is you going into the corner. Good job taking your ears off. That's a really good cover." And at this point, I had no idea how to respond because it really seemed like he just wanted to prove me wrong and was just making up stories about how I supposedly cheated on him. Anyways, I found the girl who he was talking about because she was wearing a penguin costume and it was pretty easy to find. And yeah, as you can probably guess, she looks absolutely nothing like me. So I'm not sure why he thinks it's me at all. You can see her hood that has a beak and an eye on it, which doesn't look like my costume at all. I did not leave any of my friends' side all night, and I have no idea what to do at this moment. This has gotten so frustrating that my relationship, which I never speak about and keep private, is now known by my friends and family over this fight. I couldn't mentally handle it all alone, and I told everyone about it and sent them all the photos, and everyone agreed right away that it was not me. Like, it literally isn't. We've been together for 8 years, and I'm so sick of it and over it, and it only took a week. So if anyone here has some advice about this situation, situation. Could you please tell me what to do now? I haven't shown him the photo of the penguin girl because I don't think I should be the one proving I didn't cheat. And if anything, he should be the one proving that I did cheat. I really think that he should trust my word like I do his. But I don't even know who he is anymore. He's quite literally acting insane and I seriously just don't know what to do. Okay, holy crap, your boyfriend is a piece of garbage. First of all, it is a giant red flag that this guy is so obsessed with trying to prove that you're cheating on him, because I'm just willing to bet it's probably the other way around, and he's trying to find a way out of this relationship to go to the other girl. It sounds crazy, but that's kind of like the playbook of people like this, and I really hope that's not the case, don't get me wrong, but either way, this is a giant red flag in my opinion. Like, this guy seems so desperate to be like, oh yeah, you cheated on me. Here's you almost kissing another guy. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And it's like, dude, you know exactly what your girlfriend was wearing to this stupid party. You know for a fact that she wasn't wearing the penguin costume or kissing the guy that was significantly shorter than her. Like, dude, get a life. What's going on right now? Like, this really is super concerning. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be questioning this entire relationship because this guy sounds like a controlling, jealous weirdo. And in my opinion, I just don't think he sounds like a good boyfriend in the slightest.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled student blatantly uses artificial intelligence just to do his work. Things got so bad that he even demanded to do the final group project by himself simply because he wanted to try and get away with this one last time, resulting in him failing miserably and being forced to retake this class all over again. Here's what happened. One of the degree modules I teach involves students working on a group programming project. It's nothing too elaborate, but the aim of the module is to develop skills they will need if they go on to work in the IT field. After all, if you're doing a computer science degree, you must be thinking of going down that route, right? Well, this one student is an absolute entitled nightmare. He uses AI for a lot of his work and it really does show. He always pushed me on the written remarks on his work, but every time I sit him down and ask him to explain the code he produces, he struggles and often has no idea how the code he submitted even works in the first place. In this project, he came up to me and basically told me that he cannot work with others in the group and that he must work alone. I then explained that there are specific group activities and efforts I would be marking and that I needed to see his input within the group. There was no way I could excuse him from the group activities in the module. However, I could see that he was not going to budge and therefore complied with his demand to work on the project alone. All of the other students in my class had been assigned to their groups, and I did check in with them all on like a weekly basis. But this one guy was steadfastly refusing to work with the rest of his group, and as I complied with his request, he was working on his own project alone. In my interim feedback at the end of each stage, I repeated that he really should work with a group or he would risk a failing mark for the module. In fact, I made sure the feedback was sent to him both in hard copy and also via email with read receipts, which I absolutely kept. Well, cue the end of the module and the submission for marking. Sure enough, the one student submitted a project based just on his own work, and he had not engaged with the group that he was asked to work with. There were several issues with his project. First and most important was it didn't meet the brief. The code simply didn't do what we had asked for, which meant that he lost marks for that aspect of the project. And because he had not worked with others in the group, he was not awarded any of the group marks allocated for the work. Because his code was so far away from the specification, I called him in to basically explain the code, and he demonstrated a complete lack of understanding of the code that he even submitted, which meant that more marks were dropped, which eventually led to his marks for this assignment being a hard fail, which means he has to retake the entire module. Now, the only bad part about this is that this whole thing really does affect me. I've now got him in my group again for the rest of the module, and honestly, I am not looking forward to that. Holy crap, imagine doing something in technology like this, only to then screw it up by being like, oh, instead of actually learning the material, I'm just gonna have artificial intelligence do my homework for me. That won't completely backfire in my face, this is gonna be great. Like, dude, that's absolutely not the answer, and the fact that they thought it was is just insane in my opinion. So truly, this guy absolutely deserved to fail, especially if you're gonna lose AI. Like, dude, you deserve to fail at that point, and like, you have absolutely no one to blame except for yourself. Because if this guy had literally just like buckled down and learned the material, he probably would have passed and not had any issues moving forward. But now he's got to retake all of it, and that is honestly his own fault. An entitled jerk decided that he was going to be rude to me on the phone when I was literally trying to pick them up for Uber. So after listening to the way they were talking to me and the awful attitude they gave, I decided to get some revenge by hanging up on them, canceling the ride, and driving away, forcing them to wait in the cold and find another ride. Here's what happened. Back in 2019, I was an Uber driver, and one night, sometime in the early winter, I had to pick up this group of about 4 guys in downtown Detroit who were maybe somewhere in their 40s. They were only about 5 minutes away from me, and honestly, it wasn't even that cold outside, outside, or at least I didn't think so. But anyways, I got to where the GPS said they were at, but as it would often happen, they weren't at the exact pickup spot. So I gave them a call, or maybe they called me, and I had a very brief chat with the guy who called the Uber, who pretty much asked me where I was. And the guy was totally calm and very polite. But then all of a sudden, one of his friends wanted to talk to me and got his phone away from him. He had kind of a British and Indian accent and asked me where I was. I tried reasoning with him, but the guy just kept talking back to me very condescendingly, saying things like, "Listen, we're freezing out here. There is no reason for you to be taking so long. Look, we are standing in the middle of the sidewalk. It is so cold outside. I don't understand why you're making us wait like this." Now, I truly did not care for his tone or the way he spoke to me. I mean, it's like he was trying to mimic politeness at first, but his disrespect escalated pretty quickly after that. Like, he barely gave me a chance to even respond. They were hardly waiting a few minutes at that point, and he was already running his mouth. The dude just couldn't hide his bad attitude or inability to listen. So at some point, I thought to myself, you know what? You're just gonna have to wait in the cold even longer. I then hung up on him and I canceled the ride and I drove away. On to the next passenger. And I hope you had a lot of fun freezing your butt off, because I'm absolutely not gonna be talking to you like that. Dude, good for this Uber driver. That is absolutely the way you want to handle this. Like, I will never understand anyone who talks badly to like customer service reps or anybody who's in like the public eye dealing with people. And that includes taxi drivers and Uber drivers. Like, things were going so well, this was going to be a normal situation. But then this guy grabbed the phone and decided to be stupid. And guess what? If you're going to mess around, then you are absolutely going to find out. So yeah, I love this story because this is absolutely the way it always should go down. Am I the jerk for asking my sister-in-law what she's doing with her degree after she implied that my university wasn't prestigious enough? Because right now this has caused a huge thing in my family, and honestly I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so last night my husband, our 2-year-old daughter, and I were all at my in-laws' place. My sister-in-law and her husband and her kids were also there too. The topic of one of their cousin's kids going to university came up, and we talked about how going to a good university helps in networking. I mentioned how I'd gotten my first business analyst job because my interviewer had also gone to my university. And at this point, my sister-in-law chimed in and basically said, "Oh, you mean the satellite college, so not the actual one?" My husband said politely that it's the same thing, and she just shrugged. I then asked her where she went, and she said that she went to my school but at a different campus. So it's here that I asked her how she's using her degree. She then said that she chose to be a stay-at-home mom and just kind of stopped talking to me at that point. With all that in mind, my husband thinks that I was out of line. Admittedly, I didn't think it through when I said it, and I honestly just said what came to mind. He says her question was tactless but not malicious, but I said it was rude and that's what mattered, and the premise of it was just wrong. But after thinking about it, I have been reconsidering it. Ever since then, she has been texting me about how out of line I was, and he's even told her that it was a misunderstanding between everybody and to just let it go. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm not sure if I made a mistake. No, you're not the jerk. This is so stupid. If your sister-in-law really can't take that kind of criticism, then holy crap, don't dish it, lady. Don't give out that kind of energy if you can't handle it in return. Like, seriously, what's wrong with you? Why would you act like that? Don't sit there and be like, wow, your college is just a satellite college. But then when she literally says the same thing, where she didn't go to the main school, but like went to a satellite college as well, suddenly it's a problem when you ask her what she's doing with her degree? Like, dude, give me a break. That is so stupid. So no, I don't think this is any misunderstanding, and I don't think you were out of line, because if your sister-in-law wants to act like that, and she wants to try and make some kind of weird criticism towards you, then she'd better be prepared for the softball pitch that you made when you simply asked her what she's doing with her degree, because this road is a two-way street if she really wants to find out. Am I the jerk for refusing to host my sister's baby shower after she refused to respect my boundaries in my own home about who I'm comfortable bringing around my son? Because right now this is getting incredibly weird and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So my sister is about 24 weeks pregnant and she's due in May. She and her boyfriend have been struggling to find a baby shower venue in their state, so they asked if my wife and I could host it at our house in Pennsylvania. Now I agreed happily, but I set 4 simple rules. First, our little brother who's 10 years old wouldn't be invited. Secondly, our 15-year-old little sister could come to the party as long as she was respectful. Third, if anyone was disrespectful, I reserve the right to ask them to leave my house as it was my rules. And fourth, because of past safety concerns, her boyfriend wouldn't be welcome on my property. She could host a separate one if she really wanted him included. Well, when I said that, she got immediately mad. And trust me, I know I've got to give a lot of context here. For starters, we barely know our little brother. We met him once last year, and honestly, there's a whole messy situation with my dad's ex that that makes even his paternity questionable. So I didn't feel comfortable having a stranger's kid at my house, or his mother who, for context, tried to force substances on me when I was about 10 years old. But seriously, what really set her off was rules 2 and 3. My younger sister called me a bunch of transphobic names last weekend, and I told my twin sister I wasn't going to let that slide again, and that this time I would not be hiding in my room. Instead, she would be asked to leave. She just told me to get over it and said that even though it's my house, apparently I don't get to kick people out because it's her baby shower. But then she completely lost it when I mentioned rule number 4 about her boyfriend. I know it sounds harsh to exclude the baby daddy, but last time we visited, he got angry, he threatened to blow a hole in our heads, and said he would follow through with the next threat the next time he sees us. And we literally had to leave early because of that. So no, I don't feel safe having him in my home or around my son. She then started defending her boyfriend, telling me that I can't control the guest list, saying that if I didn't like someone, I could just sit in my room all day, and that she would be inviting anyone she wanted and that I could just deal with it. Well, at that point, I told her, look, I respect your view, but I'm not going to host something where I have to hide in my own house if someone disrespects me. And I'm not going to be going around in fear of my life, or my wife's life, and my son's life if your boyfriend decides to follow through with his threats. And so with that in mind, I backed out entirely. Now she's upset and saying I'm selfish for taking away her only venue option over a personal grudge, and calling me names like pathetic and an insecure man-child. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because this is honestly incredibly upsetting. Dude, are you kidding me right now? This is so stupid. First of all, your sister's an idiot for being like, oh, come on. You're being pathetic and selfish. You're so insecure. My boyfriend only said he was going to end your life. What's the big deal? Like, holy crap, what are we talking about right now? That is all the reasoning you ever need to be like, no, you're never showing up at my house. And trust me, the other rules are important as well. Don't get me wrong. Like, yeah, your younger sister sucks and your little brother might not even be your little brother, so I totally get it. But for her to basically treat your house like some kind of venue she can reserve, where she has the say of who can and can't be there, along with her even beginning to defend her boyfriend with the things he said to you, like, oh my gosh, what are we talking about? That's crazy, dude. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong by defending yourself and saying, hey, I don't feel comfortable with this. This is absolutely not working for me, so I'm gonna back out. Because this is some grade A psycho behavior and you absolutely do not deserve to be treated like this. Did I overreact by leaving my stupid ex standing outside on the street for like 30 minutes? Especially after all the crap he's put me through recently in my life. Because right now, I'm not sure if I made a mistake and I honestly just don't know what to do. Here's how it all happened. I'm a 32-year-old female and I had this on and off situation with a guy that lasted about 4 months. It quickly became a situation where he kept positioning himself where he was in financial need, and I found myself just saying, oh, don't worry, I'll get it, especially when we went out to eat or anything like that. After a while, I said that I suspected I was being exploited for money, especially as I paid for him to do some work for my company, and he simply wouldn't do it, and instead would just go out drinking. And despite all that, he still managed to gaslight me into thinking that I was in the wrong. He got so mad and blocked me, and then disappeared for like 2 weeks. Then he would come back and we'd end up back at my place, where all of this would repeat again and I would be the fool yet again. But this time though, I just decided I was done with it. He said he was coming over and I just didn't reply. He rode a bus for like 30 minutes and then stood in the street spamming my phone number. My friend even said that they could see him in the street pacing and waiting, and I was just frozen because we've had so many arguments. And I didn't want to just say, oh, I'm not letting you in, because honestly, I was scared. I just thought that he would give up. And you know what? After 30 minutes, he did. He got the bus home again while cussing me out, and then he blocked me. And now he's messaging my friend, and for a while, they believed his story until I showed the screenshots. So was I overreacting by just leaving him standing outside in the cold for like 30 minutes? Because this is all incredibly weird and I just don't know what to do. Oh man, this sounds like one of those ex-boyfriends that you need to kick to the curb and not look back. Like, my god, what a weirdo. He's gaslighting you, he's lying to you, he refuses to do anything to improve his financial situation. Like, this guy has the word loser strapped across his face. Like, what are we doing right now? So no, this guy absolutely needs to go and you need to move on with your life. So I know if I was in your situation, I would have left him in the cold as well. I would have blocked him and said, I'm moving on with my life and I'm not going to contact this weirdo ever again. Because from the sounds of it, he doesn't seem like he's going to be a good fit for you, and I just think you could do so much better than this. Am I the jerk for refusing to cover my brother's share of our dad's car repair bill? Because my brother is basically demanding that I paid instead, and that he'll owe me one in the future if I just take care of this, putting me in a position that's really unfair that I honestly just don't want to deal with. Here's what's going on. Okay, to get right into it, our dad is 59 years old, and his car broke down last month. The transmission failed, and it ended up costing about $4,500 to fix. Now, he really needs the car for work, but he doesn't have much money saved up. My brother and I agreed that we would split the the cost so that my dad wouldn't have to stress about it. Well, a few weeks later, my brother went on a golf trip to Portugal. When I asked if he had sent his half for the repair yet, he said that he didn't have the cash right now and that since I make more money, I should just cover it and that he would just owe me one. But when he said that, I told him no. If he could afford a trip like that, then he can afford to help dad out. Now he's calling me petty and saying that I'm making dad anxious over money just to prove a point. Dad doesn't want to get involved, but I can tell that he feels awkward about the entire thing. So am I the jerk for refusing to pay my brother's half? Because right now I'm honestly pretty pissed off. No, you're not the jerk. Your brother's an idiot. Seriously, if he said he was going to pay for it, then he absolutely still needs to pay for it. And I don't care if he just went on a golf trip to Portugal. You need to pay for what you said you're going to do. The fact that he's not willing to do that is just completely irrational and not okay in my opinion. And I love the fact that he somehow tried to turn this against your dad and be like, wow, you're making him anxious about money. But it's like, dude, the only person here that's making him anxious is you because you're refusing to pay. Like, you are literally the root cause of all of the problems going on right now. So no, you're not the jerk. This is so stupid. And if your brother would simply pay what he owed, this all literally would go away. My entitled friend demands proof that my fiance is actually sick, claiming that he is actually faking it and that we just set up a donation page to assist my fiance just so we would have more money for our wedding. And I'm honestly so disgusted by my friend's behavior, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm engaged to my fiance James. James is not his real name. He recently had surgery on his leg and hip, but there were complications, and he has been sick and weak ever since. We try not to ask for help, but this has put a big financial strain on us, to the point where we've spent our wedding savings on his recovery. We are fine with this, because if we need to have a courthouse wedding, we're completely cool with it. We just want him to be healthy, but we did set up a temporary donation page to help with some of the expenses. A friend of mine by the name of Carla donated $10 about a month ago, and I reached out to her to thank her. Last week, we posted an update, not asking for more money, but just to let people know that he has had another setback and the doctors are creating an all-new treatment plan just for him. Carla commented publicly and said the following: I'm beginning to question if he has actually been sick this long or if y'all are just trying to get more money for your wedding. Who takes this long to recover from surgery, especially when you're an athlete? I responded to her by saying the following: I am very offended and appalled that you would accuse us of faking anything. Maybe you're just having a bad day or a moment of bad judgment, but how shamefully low of you. She replied back by saying, I want my donation back unless you can show proof that he's sick. Is he in a hospital bed or sitting in a doctor's office? Do you have anything to prove that he's actually sick? I sent her $10 back to get her off of our backs, but I also sent her a video with James's approval, all of the proof that she had asked for. One of the concerns James has had is that he will get severely nauseous if he eats protein, which is what he's supposed to be doing. This also happens if he overexerts himself. So I sent her a video of him dry heaving into a bag in the middle of physical therapy. Now, one of his doctors asked us to record his physical therapy so they can see the progression of him not feeling well to hopefully making some adjustments. So I didn't take this video just to send it to Carla, but to me it seemed like solid proof since she was asking for it. She said to me, that is disgusting. I don't want to see that. This is triggering me so bad. I hope you're happy with yourself. I feel like I've been completely traumatized now. So I just said back to her, okay, well now you have $10 more to process that trauma in therapy. And I've honestly never dealt with anyone so entitled in my life. Yeah, your friend Carla is hardly even a friend. Like, seriously, what is wrong with her? Who in their right mind would question someone in the hospital? Look, if you don't think he's being legit, don't send your money over to them. Just keep it for yourself and mind your own business. But for her to literally go out there and be like, wow, I don't think you're actually sick, you're probably faking it, while also demanding evidence that they're actually sick in the first place, all of that, in my opinion, is so toxic. That seriously is so disgusting, and I can't imagine being that awful of a person. It's also incredibly ironic that once you send this video over to Carla, she tries to pretend like she's all triggered and she can't handle what she's seeing. But in reality, she's the one that wanted to see visual proof that, yeah, he's not doing well. Like, also think about it for a second. James and the original poster are getting married. Do you really think they would risk their entire reputation just to get a couple $100 from people around them? Like, I can't imagine they would ruin their lives like that over maybe what, a couple $1,000 at most? That just doesn't seem worth it in my opinion. So yeah, this Carla lady is a complete jerk. She is absolutely not a good friend, and I think you know exactly who you're not going to invite once the wedding between you and James finally comes around. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My husband claims that I tripped over a suitcase on purpose just to guilt trip him for not moving it sooner, and now I'm being called a jerk, as he claims that I did that on purpose just to get back at him. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 32-year-old female, and I'm currently 8 months pregnant with our first child, and I am trying to do everything I can to make sure the house is ready. This started with a little spring cleaning jobs, but has developed into a full-blown deep clean of literally everything. One of the things I have decluttered recently was mine and my husband's closet. I donated everything that we don't wear and have folded and put away everything that we won't need during winter. Some of this clothing has gone into a suitcase, which is currently sitting on our bedroom floor because it is too heavy for me to lift and even put away. I have asked my husband to please help me more than once, but he is always either too tired after finishing work or he says that it slips his mind. All in all, the suitcase is currently looking like a permanent installation in our bedroom. He has at least shifted it out of the main walkway in the interim. Well, last night I woke up to go to the bathroom and ended up tripping over the suitcase as I fumbled in the dark. I do obviously know where it is after it's been there for so long, but I was half asleep and I was trying to avoid our sleeping puppy. Now, while the fall wasn't bad, I did wake up my husband in the process. My husband was initially quite worried, especially since our midwife told us that any fall needed a trip to the hospital. But once he realized that it was because of the suitcase, he then became quite upset. He said to me that there's no way I could have tripped over the suitcase unintentionally, as he had supposedly moved it out of the walkway, and I just tripped over it to try and prove a point. He said that he could not believe I would behave so passive-aggressively and put our baby's life at risk rather than just asking him again. He also went on to say that forgetting to move the case is not a crime. The more I tried to explain that I was trying to avoid waking him up and tripping over the dog, the more he said that these were just convenient excuses to make him look lazy and unhelpful around the house. He said I was punishing him for not getting to the suitcase sooner, and that if anything, I should have had a plan to deal with it from the beginning, as it was me who wanted to sort out the closet in the first place. My husband was fired up again after I mentioned to the midwife this morning that I had tripped over a suitcase, and he said I could have just told her that I had fallen over the dog or over my shoelaces or something like that. He said to me that he made his feelings clear during the night when we had our discussion, and I was rubbing salt in the wounds now. I spoke to my mom about it after we got back from the midwife because I wanted to vent to her, and she surprisingly took his side and said I was letting my emotions get the best of me. My mom said I should have been more graceful bringing it up in front of the midwife, although I will say that I never said anything about asking him to move it. She said that the situation has probably made my husband feel quite bad about himself, which is why this has turned into such big drama. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think your mom and your husband are being complete idiots, and they are missing so many key facts here. For starters, your husband easily could have moved it. You asked him multiple times if he could just get it out of the way. You can't lift it because you're what, 8 months pregnant? Like seriously, you should not be moving anything like that, especially if it's heavy if you're that far into your pregnancy. Like that would be irresponsible and it could damage you and the baby. So the fact that your husband was so willing to put it off and then freak out on you when you tripped over the stupid suitcase is proof enough to me that he not only feels guilty, but he's now trying to like shift that blame on you somehow. Like seriously, it was dark and you were trying to avoid the dog. It's not like you tripped over it on purpose while you were pregnant. That would be an insane thing to do, and I just don't think you would be willing to do that. Now, when it comes to your mother, I think she's completely wrong as well. You're not rubbing salt in the wound. That's such a stupid thing to say. You are literally just trying to talk to the midwife and make sure that you are okay and the baby's okay. You didn't tell the midwife how you fell down. You just fell down by tripping over a suitcase. If your husband wants to get bent out of shape and really upset because he didn't move it, and by effect making him the reason why you tripped over in the first place, then that's honestly on him. But for your mom as well as your husband to basically be shifting the blame in your direction, that in my opinion is so unacceptable. So no, I don't think you're the jerk here. I think your husband was being very irresponsible and he clearly feels guilty about not moving that suitcase. My new girlfriend slept with someone at Burning Man after 1 month of us dating, and now I'm kind of at a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so I first want to start off by saying that our relationship ramped up very quickly, and I have had some difficulties with
relationships in my 30s. For context, I'm 39 and my girlfriend is 36. But this one felt different from the start. We connected deeply and felt a mutual adoration for one another and shared vision for the future. We committed to each other after a few weeks of dating and then went away on separate trips for 2 weeks, a couple of weeks after committing, and 5 weeks since meeting up. And so I went to a meditation retreat and she went to Burning Man. Before leaving, she reassured me deeply that nothing would happen and she was crazy about me and so excited about our future. She said she was using her time there to deepen our relationship. We exchanged notes to open one day while we were apart. And yes, it's cute, I know. I was on a silent meditation retreat, so I was in a bit of a quarantine, dreaming of seeing her again soon. I was definitely falling in love. Anyway, when we reunited to embark on our post-Burning Man vacation together, she immediately confessed to having slept with someone at Burning Man. And this is someone from her camp who had a girlfriend. She said that she'd never need to see or talk to that person again, and that she's over it and it was not emotionally significant, and really wants to work things through. Her apology was clumsy as she navigated the shame, but she did apologize. I had such a clear vision for our future, a future I've been dreaming about for such a long time. We've decided to try and work through it, and we've had our ups and downs. Now, I am falling in love with her, but I also can't stop being bummed out about what happened. In the end, I know we moved way too fast. It just felt like something special that warranted moving at the speed it wanted to. And she reassured me so intensely that I felt a bit baited. Anyways, I'm just trying to sort out that if we keep spending time together, I can finally let this go. It was very early and she slept with one guy one time, and she admitted immediately. I do trust she wouldn't do it again. I mean, our connection has deepened even further. We shouldn't have committed so quickly, but we did. I wish we took things more slowly, but we didn't. So now I'm trying to look at this as some kind of fresh start for us, but 6 weeks later and I'm still not over it. If I won't be able to let it go, then it would be best to let the relationship go, as hard as that might be. I would honestly love some outside perspective, because I'm really wondering if this will pass with time and we can build something great. Or is this a situation where it might always be tainted? It does seem logically forgivable to me, but my emotions and ruminations are lagging. And honestly, at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I am really surprised that you stuck with her after she confessed that she cheated. And that's what she did. She cheated. She didn't just sleep with another guy, she straight up cheated on you. And it's astonishing to me that throughout this entire post, you didn't say that she cheated on you a single time, because that's exactly what she did. And I think it's important to note that if you do want to move forward. What she did is completely unacceptable. She knew what she was doing and she did that willingly, despite the fact that you two were very clearly in a relationship. And I know that if I was in your shoes, I would have turned my back on her in an instant. There is no way I would waste my time with someone like that, especially this early in the relationship, because in my opinion, if she can do it once, she absolutely can do it again. And sure, you clearly feel differently. You've been able to develop some kind of relationship between the two of you, and honestly, good for you. But I know for a fact I would be out of there so fast it's not even funny. And even worse, she cheated on you with somebody who already had a girlfriend. Like, think about that for a second. That is so unbelievably sketchy. So in my opinion, if you want to try and make this work, then go for it. But I know that if that was me in that situation, there's absolutely no question about it. I would have walked out of that relationship and never looked back. Am I the jerk for refusing to attend a wedding in another state with my 8-year-old baby? Because right now I'm being guilt-tripped by everybody in my extended family. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 35-year-old female, and I've been having a few tricky discussions with my husband and his family over a wedding that's happening later this year. I don't want to go, but people are telling me I should just deal with it and figure out a way. Let me give you some background. The groom in question is my husband's cousin. They're not that close. They only see each other once every year or so at large family events and never keep in touch in between. The wedding is in another state, and we would need to catch a plane there as it is too far for us to drive. We received an invitation, and we heard through the grapevine that we could bring our baby. My gut instinct told me to double check with the bride. I didn't want to commit the faux pas of bringing a baby to a wedding if it was not what the bride wanted. And sure enough, when we emailed her, she replied and said very clearly, "Sorry, this is a baby-free wedding." And of course, that's fine. It's completely her choice. This is her special day after all. So we replied and told them that my husband would attend alone, as I would have to stay at home with the baby. My baby is only 8 months old and still breastfeeding, so I can't just leave him back home so easily. Not long after we sent the RSVP about me not coming, several people contacted us, including the bride and groom, trying to persuade us to go. Apparently now they've changed their minds, and the baby could now come to the wedding since they wanted me there as well. I told
told my husband I didn't want to go. Even though the bride had done a 180 on the no baby rule, I still felt he was too young to attend, and it would be too difficult to go interstate. I would probably spend half, if not most of the wedding absent due to nursing the baby, as well as the baby making noises and babbling during the ceremony. And of course, it has a bedtime at 7:30. In my opinion, this is too much hassle for a short amount of family time. But my husband is upset and really wants to make the effort, and I'm starting to feel like I'm being unreasonable for putting my foot down and saying that this is way too hard. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk here. Listen, everybody's adults here. People can make their own decisions for whatever they want. And if you don't want to go to this stupid wedding, then in my opinion, I would just not go. I would say, look, I'm not gonna go, I've got a baby, it's gonna be too much. And if they still don't get it, then just let them not get it. You should not be guilt-tripped into showing up to this stupid wedding just to then have to spend all this time and energy just to take care of your 8-month-old child, who, by the way, is probably going to be high maintenance. Like, they're traveling on an airplane, they're gonna be in a foreign environment. There's a lot of things that could and probably will go wrong with the baby coming along. And honestly, dealing with that on top of going to this wedding and making an appearance, all of that just sounds completely exhausting. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for wanting to stay at home, and I seriously think the simple solution here is to simply say no. An entitled jerk demands that I keep my mouth shut and just keep serving beer, claiming that he doesn't need my help and that he is paid to do the thinking and that I'm just paid to serve the beer. So I decide to maliciously comply and watch as he slowly starts to unravel at the seams. And I've never been more satisfied to watch karma work its magic in my life. Here's what happened. So this happened about 10 years ago now. I'd been working in catering and hospitality, mostly managing pubs, for about 10 years at this stage. The catering company I worked for had come up short-staffed for a smallish function and festival that they were putting on, probably a maximum of 200 people at a venue they controlled. I was in a different division but asked to help out on the bar, as well as the bump in and bump out. This was easy enough, and the music was looking pretty good, so I agreed. It was in the middle of the spring. The weather had not yet been really warm, so we were expecting decent numbers but nothing special. Bringing in the bar was easy enough. The venue was massive and easily able to accommodate the truck and all the things we would need. Having a single mobile bar with just one tap tree was probably on the light side, but I figured the venue manager knew what he was doing. So I introduced myself to him and I got to work. I unloaded and brought all the gear and beverages in and made a couple of attempts to discuss how we would set up the service area, but each time was shut down with progressively more aggressive language until he finally told me, look, I've run dozens of functions in this venue. I think I know how to set it up. We really only asked for a bartender. So I thought to myself, okay, no problem, buddy. I didn't mention to him that it had been me that picked up the truck from the warehouse, collected the bar and 10 kegs from our supplier, as well as the other beverage package and delivered it to him, or that I was the only one able to bump it all out at the end of the evening. So I just agreed with whatever he said and set things up for how he wanted. So the weather ended up being a beautiful day, about 27 degrees Celsius or 80 degrees Fahrenheit. There was a light breeze and the turnout was about 400, which was much better than expected. Pretty quickly, it turned out that we were struggling to keep up with bar service, so I suggested that rather than having a traditional service, we should have one person on the till, one person constantly pouring beers, and one person filling up other drinks, stuff like wine or soft drinks or stuff like that. But once again, I was snapped at by the now very clearly stressed out venue supervisor. He just said to me, you just keep serving and let me do the thinking. So I thought to myself, okay, I've officially had enough. Customers were getting frustrated at the slow service, and this peanut was too proud to accept advice from someone far more experienced. And then the keg blew. I was about to change it when this genius stepped in and said he would take care of it. I checked that he knew what he was doing and was assured he's done this 100 times, and so I decided to back off and leave him to it. So I did just that. I watched him not uncouple the gas line and go straight for the beer lock. Happily though, he had his face right in the correct spot, so as soon as he cracked the lock, it copped a huge spray in his face of nice warm beer foam. And this went all through his hair and all through his glasses, wet all the way down the front of his shirt as well. It was glorious to behold, and the first 30 people in line thought so as well, because they witnessed some of his antics. And after that, I didn't hear much from him for the rest of the day. He asked me to change the kegs when needed and pretty much just stayed away from the service area. We eventually streamlined things as well, and although it didn't end up a success as far as customer satisfaction goes, it was thankfully not the disaster that I thought would be brewing. Yeah, that venue guy clearly thought he had everything figured out. Firstly, this guy just just did not know what he was doing. He was clearly in over his head and thought, wow, I can handle this by myself. I don't need you to do anything. I just need a bartender. Like, okay, buddy, I've been doing this for what, 10 years now? Like, the fact that he couldn't put his pride to the side and say, okay, let me get some help, as well as take some kind of suggestion from this other person, shows to me that this guy very clearly should not have been a venue manager. So good for the original poster for letting this train wreck happen. This guy absolutely had it coming for himself, and any problems this guy ran into throughout the entirety of this night is quite literally his own fault. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for not giving my ex-girlfriend exactly what she wants after she decided to cheat on me? Here's what happened. My girlfriend and I of 4 years moved into an apartment with a close friend of mine. When we first moved in, I wanted to replace my old mattress with something new. My girlfriend has chronic pain, and so I thought I'd let her pick something out that would feel comfortable for her to lay on. I offered to buy a $3,000 mattress that's one of those purple mattresses, and this would also include a frame, but she felt she should pay half of it since we both would be using it. Not wanting to argue, I just went with it and used the extra money I had to give us a nice TV as well as a PlayStation 5. To be fair, the PlayStation 5 was mostly for me, but she'd be free to use it whenever she wanted. Fast forward a little bit later, and she has been cheating on me with my roommate, and eventually she leaves me for him, which brings up the issue of what to do with the mattress. Despite everything that's happened, we're both trying to be civil while I look for a place to move out. The solution that she's wanting is for me to give her the mattress, and she'll go in half to help me get a mattress. I don't have much cash saved up, so that option really sucks. I'd prefer to just keep the mattress and pay her the $1,500 that I owe her instead, which was the initial deal when we broke up. My reasoning is that I was initially going to buy it to begin with. I was the one who wanted a new one to begin with. And also, I'm not the one that cheated. Her reason is that she picked it out specifically to help with her back pain. And now I understand that she offered to go half in on a mattress with me, but again, I don't have that same amount of money saved up to use for something like this at the moment. So that doesn't feel fair to me that I'm downgrading mattresses all because she's the one that cheated on me. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I do not think you're the jerk at all. Your girlfriend absolutely cheated on you. She is a piece of garbage and she absolutely knows it. She's walking out on your relationship to go with your roommate. I mean, come on, that is such an awful situation to be stuck in. So honestly, in my opinion, I think your plan is the better one. Just pay her what you owe for the mattress and keep the mattress for yourself. And you know what? If she doesn't like it, well then guess what? She probably shouldn't have cheated. So honestly, I don't think you're the jerk here, and your ex is just gonna have to deal with it. An entitled mother lets her kids run around my coffee shop and do whatever they want. But after her kids started destroying the property of this coffee shop, I decided to step in and tell her enough is enough, causing this Karen of a mother to freak out and start screaming at me. Here's what happened. So there's this lady that comes in all the time. She has 4 children, 3 of which can walk around. She always comes up and orders her coffee, but then if her kid throws a fit, she orders something for them too. They each get a pastry, which is popular for kids between the ages of 3 and 6. It's like getting a big slice of sugary bread, with each of them getting a drink as well. It's always very complicated to make because the kids all want something entirely different. Anyways, her kids are usually fine. I've noticed, however, that she never really watches them. She gets her coffee, sits down on our couch, and gets out her phone. She makes them, again these little kids, come up and grab their own orders. It's also dumb because since they're little, I have to stand there and reach over the counter to hand their drinks over, while also making sure that they don't drop it or spill it on the ground. The other day, she came in about an hour before we close. That's right around when we start cleaning up because it takes me that long to close the shop. So she orders her coffee, and luckily her kids didn't feel like getting anything. So I made her coffee and that was it. I'm washing dishes and all of a sudden I hear a shatter from across the restaurant. Her little boy had broken some salt and pepper shakers that were sitting on the table that eventually fell on the ground because they were horsing around. Now there's a big pile of salt and pepper on the floor, but worst of all, there's now glass on the floor around little children. So I rushed over to sweep it up because I did not want anybody getting hurt, and that was honestly fine for the most part. But then her smallest girl started getting upset over whatever and started ripping posters off of our bulletin board in a fit. Now for reference, we have a big bulletin board so that we can hang community announcements on it, and that was honestly my last straw. I came over and held her hands gently and told her to stop, but the entitled mother comes over and told me to take my hands off of her kid, and so I politely and calmly explained why I was holding her hands and that she can't just rip down our posters. Thumbtacks were falling off, and again, I didn't want anybody
anybody getting hurt. This really upset her. She told me to just leave her alone and that she would calm down soon enough. So I told her again, your daughter cannot rip posters off of our bulletin board. But right after I said that, the thumbtacks were still flying off of it. She then screamed at me, something about how I'm not a parent and I'd never understand, and something about my generation being so weak and stupid. She then gathered her kids and then left the store. Now, I'm not one to take yelling easily, and I don't like yelling in general, and I have some past experiences if you catch my drift. But honestly, I was really shaken up after this, and overall, this interaction was incredibly weird. Yeah, that entitled mother was being really dumb. The fact that she tried to pull the card of, oh, you're not a parent, you don't understand how hard it is, in my opinion is such a cop-out it's not even funny. Because in reality, she's never done anything to try and give her kids any kind of discipline. She's never punished them or reprimanded them in some kind of way. She hasn't trained them how to act in public and how you can't start ripping things off the wall or start horsing around in public and breaking stuff or anything like that. Instead, she has let her kids train her. Their stupid tantrums have become a way of life, and they can now get away with whatever they want. And that's not a result of the kids acting up. That's the result of this entitled mother not training her kids, making this entire situation her fault. And for her to turn around and be like, wow, get your hands off my child. It's like, lady, your kid's gonna cut herself or hurt herself in some kind of way, all because you're not watching her properly. Like if I was working there, I would have done the same thing, even if it was just to block the kid from ripping posters off the wall. So yeah, the entitled mom in this story was being super weird. You did a really good job of trying to keep things at bay, but clearly this entitled Karen of a mother had different plans. And unfortunately, you just happened to be caught in the crossfire. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled university refuses to allow any of our meal plan options to roll over to the next semester, so I decided to maliciously comply by bringing dozens of homeless people into my university to use up all of my meal plan points as a fantastic and wholesome way of getting revenge. Here's what happened. So this happened my freshman year of college about 20 years ago. My university had just invested in a big new dining hall, and to help pay for their investment, they required all new students to buy a $150 meal plan for both semesters. Now this was a big financial burden being from a lower middle class family, but my parents pulled funds to help me out and make it happen. Shortly into my first semester, I found out from friends that the meals you didn't use didn't roll over. Since I lived off campus, I knew that I would not be able to use them all. Heading into November, I realized I would end up with about 60 to 75 meals left over, and I complained about this a lot to my family and friends because it seemed like such a waste. But this is where my plan comes into play. My freshman year of college was also my cousin's senior year, and we hung out pretty often. He was the biggest trickster and prankster type that you've ever met. One night while we were drinking, he says to me the following: "What if you brought a bunch of homeless people to use up all of your leftover meals? I bet that would upset those self-righteous jerks so much it would be great." We laughed all night about it, but the more I thought about the idea, the more I really started to like it. We talked all weekend about it and hatched a plan. On Monday morning, we went down to the local Salvation Army around the corner. Now, I have grown to really despise this organization, but in the early 2000s in small-town USA, it's simply what we had. We told the lady at the desk I would love to feed people in need with my meal plan. She was hesitant at first, but ended up saying that she was working with people that this would be a huge blessing to, especially during the holiday season. She helped me organize 2 days the following week where about 30 people would meet me to eat at the dining hall. I would wear a certain hat so they could find me, and we would then go out to eat. The day finally arrived and all kinds of people were there. There were homeless people in tattered clothing. There were families with kids that seemed excited to eat out. There was even one family I will always remember that seemed embarrassed to take a handout, but I made an effort to talk to everybody and make them feel welcome. Once 12 o'clock rolled around, we headed to the dining hall. I walked up to the lady at the entrance and I said to him, "These people are with me. They are my friends, and I would like to swipe them in." Now, she did look very confused, but reluctantly she said okay. Now, to say we got every reaction humanly possible would be an understatement. There were staff that were obviously annoyed with the influx of diners. There were students that were laughing. There were students giving me the silent clap. There were snobbish faculty members that seemed to be disgusted at the type of people coming into the dining hall. But you know what? I didn't care at all. Eventually, a head staff member came up and said that they knew what I was doing and they didn't like it. I said to them, "These are my friends eating with me. I paid for these meals. Am I doing anything wrong?" And when I said that, she was completely stumped. The next day, the same situation happened with the same reactions.
friends. It seemed that I had caused quite a stir on campus, and it just so happened that the university president was eating there that day. She came up to me and said that even though she would ask that I not tell my friends to do the same thing with their meals, as the staff couldn't handle the influx of diners, she was proud that her students had the heart to do something for others like that. The following semester, I did the exact same thing. I even used my meals sparingly so I could bring in more people. The one memory that will always stick out in my head is the family with the little kids so excited to go to the pizza bar, as well as wanting to go to the soft serve ice cream machine, giggling the entire time. To this day, it's still one of the proudest moments of my life. My friends and I and my family still have a drink and chuckle over the story, as well as the annoyed, angry reactions I got as a result. That is honestly a really good and wholesome way of getting back at this university. First off, why on earth would your meals not roll over to the next semester? That is seriously such a waste of money. If you're gonna force me to pay, what, $150 for a meal plan, you better allow me to use all the meals whenever I want. And that absolutely should stretch over to both semesters. There's no reason for that not to. That's such a stupid idea. But also, this is like the malicious compliance you want to run into. This was for a good cause. You helped out people in need and you really did make a difference in the community, even though some of the faculty didn't like what you were doing. So good for you for doing the right thing. This was not only a really kind thing to do for the people around you, but it also was a really funny way of sending it right back at the university. My husband has rented a house for me and my baby that is absolutely disgusting and has mold all over the place. And now that we've signed a 1-year lease, we are stuck living here. And I'm so angry and frustrated, I seriously now don't know what to do. So as the title suggests, my husband took a new job. It's a work from home job for 4 days a week and 1 day in the office. We knew this job would require us to move from Florida to Georgia, and that was good with us. My husband went to Georgia to look at house rentals while I stayed behind to take care of our baby. I sent him a list of homes that looked great online and asked him to check those out and pick a clean, safe space for us to live. And that was legitimately the only thing I requested of him. Well, my baby and I arrive in Georgia to find this rental is absolutely disgusting. The walls are dirty, and the baseboards in some areas are practically black. There are roaches everywhere, there's mold under the sinks, there's broken floorboards in almost every room. The house is a dump, and I don't know how an active 1-year-old can possibly safely live here. I walked into this place, I looked at this dump, and I immediately cried. It's been 3 days, and I'm still in disbelief that he thought this would be an acceptable place for us to live. I feel stupid for trusting his bad judgment. When he came to look at houses in person, he only did a 5-minute walkthrough and thought that this was fine. To say he doesn't have an eye for detail is a huge understatement. He never inspected deeper to see any of the problems. And now we've signed a 1-year lease and we're completely stuck here. I've already called and emailed the property manager company just to try and see if they can fix this, and I'm honestly praying it happens. I completely blame my husband for not doing his due diligence or even caring enough to make sure that this house is safe for his baby. I don't know how I will ever get past this with him. The anger I feel about this decision he has made is really hard to get past. I've cried myself to sleep, I've yelled at him, I've threatened to go back to Florida to stay with my family. I mean, how can I forgive this and try and move forward? I am still so angry at him for putting our family in this mess. I should have never trusted him to find a safe, clean space for us to live in. And now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so either your husband didn't care about where you guys lived, or he's a complete idiot and he's blind. Because seriously, how could he miss all of this? There are literally roaches on the floorboards are disgusting, there's black mold all over the place. Like, this guy just didn't even look this place over in the slightest. He probably just halfway did it and said, okay, this place is good, and then signed the lease without even thinking about it. That is honestly so disappointing, and that's so unfair. I know if I was in your shoes, I would be super furious. And even worse, you have a baby in your life. And I don't know about you, but I definitely do not want my baby around black mold. That sounds absolutely disgusting, and seriously, that's not okay. So honestly, I would go to the property manager and see if they can fix this as soon as possible. Also, I would check the laws in your area, because I'm pretty sure what the property manager is advertising is completely illegal. Like having black mold in your property and then allowing a family with a baby to rent that place not only sounds super sketchy, but is also probably illegal in some kind of way. But honestly, with all things considered, your anger is completely justified, and in this situation, your husband is absolutely the only one to blame. I'm convinced that my friend may have cheated on her boyfriend last night, and now I'm considering calling her boyfriend and telling him exactly what happened. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so my best friend and I went together to a live sporting event last night. 3 weeks ago, her long-term long-term boyfriend moved a few states away from us, and next week she is joining him. She was my friend before I met him, but I really like her boyfriend and have been nothing but supportive of their move because I think they make an amazing couple. Tonight, we were gifted tickets to a live sports event. We pre-gamed together, I drove us there, and we made plans with mutual friends to meet them at a local bar after the game. Our original plan was to crash on our mutual friend's couch after the bar because our mutual friend lives right behind the bar that we were going to. But the real problem started once we got to the bar. Her old hookup was there. We'll call him James. James is not his real name. I had actually hung out with her and her boyfriend and James previously. There was no animosity between any of us previously when her boyfriend was still there, so I really didn't mind all of us having drinks with James. So we just had a few shots together and chatted with James. But when the bar was closing, she let me know she wasn't going back to our mutual friend's place, but instead she was going to James's apartment. Unfortunately, I was very, very drunk, so I didn't argue with her on this decision. I woke up at our mutual friend's apartment, and now it's hitting me that they probably hooked up. I'm way closer to her than him, but I still really like and respect him a lot. She's not awake yet, but I'm still not sure what to do. Would it be best for me to say something like, "You need to tell him what happened or I will"? Or should I give him a call and tell him what happened? I'm so scared because they've both been my best friends this past year, and I know this will separate all of us. I don't have many friends, and I know this will break us apart, and honestly at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I think first off, you need to really determine if anything actually happened between your friend and James. Like, obviously this does look super sketchy, and yes, your friend does need to tell her boyfriend about what happened, but you really need to figure out if something sketchy happened first. I know if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would try and insert myself into this relationship. Like, think about how messy that would be. Imagine calling this person's boyfriend and being like, "Wow, your girlfriend went to James's house last night. Did you know about that?" Like, you don't have a complete picture of what's happened yet. There's literally no clues about whether they spent any kind of quality time together or if she even stayed at his place at all. What if she went back to James's house and decided to stay at a hotel or something like that? What if she did go there and then got a taxi and went home or something like that? What I'm saying is that there's so much nuance to this story, you literally don't have the full picture yet. So I honestly would not jump to some kind of conclusion just because you think that something happened. Now, if you get some kind of confirmed information from your friend, then yeah, maybe it's time to be like, "Hey, you need to talk to your boyfriend." And only then would I feel more inclined to get involved. But even then, if I was in this situation, I would still feel super hesitant about getting involved and getting between this. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would personally be trying to get more information before I jump to any conclusions, because any number of things could have happened last night. And I really think involving yourself in this situation, especially without all the details in place, would seriously be a massive misstep. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for cussing out a woman on the bus as well as making her look stupid after she decides to come at me and my friend on the bus? Here's what happened. So I'm a 21-year-old female, and I recently found out that I am 2 months pregnant. And although I am very excited, the way I found out was really scary. I have an aggressive vasovagal syncope, which just means I faint from time to time because my body is now under constant stress. Other women who have this, they will pass out for 15 to 20 seconds. I, however, have been passing out for longer, and this came off as very concerning. I live in New York, so the trains and buses have seats meant for the disabled and elderly or even pregnant women. And because I'm only 2 months along and not showing, my doctor ordered me to have a bracelet that has a tag that says I have a fainting disorder. I also have a bright red pack with paperwork for me in case I faint on the street and someone needs to call 911. Now, around 2 days ago, I was on a bus with a friend, and when I got on it, it was fairly empty. So I sat down at the very front of the bus where the priority seating chairs are, with my friend standing near me. This specific seat is right behind the driver and has the priority seating sticker right above it. A few stops into my ride, the bus had gotten packed with people. Then a woman got on the bus, and I'm gonna call her Karen. Karen got on the bus and stood near me, leaning on the wall between me and the other seats. At one point, she even sat on my lap, and I lightly pushed her off of me and I said, "Ma'am, could you not sit on me? I do not know you." She didn't say anything, but she did move to the other side of me, and my friend could tell that she was doing it on purpose. At one point, the bus came to an abrupt stop, and this Karen acted like she had no control over herself and used this as an opportunity to shove my friend to the floor and throw her entire body weight on me, elbowing me in the tummy in the process. So I shoved her off of me onto the floor and told my friend that she hit my stomach. The entitled Karen got up from the floor cursing me out, screaming at me that she clearly needed the seat more and that I should give it to her because it's priority seating. My friend then said, "So instead of expressing that through words, you decide to try and sit on a pregnant woman while also throwing your body on her and elbowing her in the stomach. Have you lost your mind?" The entitled Karen then says back, "She's not pregnant, she's just a lazy jerk." Now when she said that to me, I got mad, and I showed off the bracelet that says I have a fainting disorder. I said to her, "Lady, I am pregnant, you absolute moron, and I need to sit down because my pregnancy makes me pass out. The fact that you acted like a child and decided to assault me instead of using your words like a big girl obviously makes you a jerk. Now please, get lost, you absolutely rancid loser." She stood in front of me like she was going to hit me, and my friend got in her face and said, "I dare you, please give me a reason to tase you." The woman eventually got off at the next stop, but pushed my friend on the way out. I went to the hospital because the pain did not subside, and thankfully the baby and I are both alright. My friend and I were telling our other friends about this, and some were on our side, but others said I was a jerk because I was only 2 months pregnant and not showing that I was pregnant. So this person had no way of knowing. I personally don't think that makes the way she acted okay, so clearly I need some outside perspective here. Am I the jerk for this situation, as well as cussing out this woman for the way she treated me? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk here. Your friends are completely wrong. Honestly, how can anyone take that lady's side? She came on that bus and was acting incredibly sketchy from the get-go. I mean, she tried to sit on your lap at one point. That is an immediate red flag, and I would have done the same thing. If someone tries to sit on me, I'm gonna push them off and be like, "Excuse me, I don't know you, get off of me." And that's also just really bad manners in general. Like, this lady seriously couldn't have gone and sat literally anywhere else, or even just sat next to the original poster like a normal human being. Like, is that seriously that hard to do? And then the fact that she purposefully threw her body weight all over you and elbowed you in the stomach, that very clearly wasn't an accident. And I know if I was in your shoes and if I was in that situation, I would have called the police and told the bus driver, "Hey, we gotta figure this out. This lady just straight up elbowed me in the stomach, and I'm not about to take that sitting down." And also, here's the thing. In my opinion, if someone really wants to mess around, then they have every right to also find out what's gonna happen when they do that. So the fact that this lady was getting up in your face and trying to act like, "Oh no, you're not actually pregnant, you're just faking it, you're just lazy," as well as all the myriad of other things she said to you, in my opinion, that's when the gloves come off and you have every right to defend yourself and put her in her place. Because think about the opposite of this situation. If you tried to be nice to her and placate her demands and stand up and get out of the way or anything like that, you very easily could have passed out and injured yourself and your baby. And that's not fair for you or anybody else involved. So in this situation, the way you and your friend handled this is absolutely appropriate. I absolutely would have reacted the exact same way, especially with someone who's being super weird and super threatening towards me. So no, of course not. You are definitely not the jerk. You defended yourself against some crazy lady who clearly had ill intentions. And personally, I would much rather have somebody think that I'm rude instead of me just letting it go and potentially getting injured even more. An entitled Karen demands that I follow her home and hand deliver a tree that she had just bought at our garden nursery. But despite me telling her that I can't follow her home to deliver something personally, she refuses to take no for an answer and even escalates this in a way that I honestly never saw coming. And I am now completely blown away by her entitlement, and I honestly hope she never comes back to our nursery ever again. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that this happened a few days ago and I still can't believe it. I'm a 25-year-old male and I work at a garden nursery. It's a decent size with a shop in the middle and outdoor plants on benches and racks around it, while also having a car park, which is where our entitled Karen and her brother come into play. They drove into our nursery as the owner was walking along it. They beeped at him and started yelling at him, claiming that he had sold them a dead tree to try and plant and make it sprout. And honestly, when I heard that, I was totally confused, and this really was not a good start to my day. They park and walk around for a bit. The brother asks me all sorts of questions and is wanting discounts on plants and starts to basically interrogate me about my life and what I'm doing for work, which I just start giving yes or no answers without actually telling the truth. Eventually, I finally get rid of him and I start walking through, checking that no plants need water. The entitled Karen then spots me and starts to yell at me from about 80 meters away. Now, some people do this, and I go to them even though it annoys me that they basically are calling me like a dog. Maybe they are handicapped and it's hard for them to walk or something like this, but this lady barely speaks English and is currently rambling something at me. And I keep asking her to repeat herself, but finally, I eventually understand that she wants to buy a tree. And the tree she wants to buy is a big weeping cherry. It's about 3 meters tall, including the pot, which is about about 90 liters of soil and it's really heavy. I take the price and I walk with her to the shop where I ask her if she would like this to be delivered to her home. Now, we have a big truck for deliveries and it goes out once a week. We never do free deliveries. They don't cost that much money and the cost is mostly just to cover fuel and time for the driver. Anyways, she says that she doesn't want it delivered, but instead she just points at her SUV. I think to myself, there is no way that tree and massive pod is ever gonna fit in that car. But okay, whatever. I go ahead and I put the sale through. I get the tree trolley and bring the tree to her car. Her brother is in the driver's seat and she goes and gets into the back seat of the car and just sits there. So I say to her, where do you want me to put it? She then says something to me that honestly blew my mind. She says to me, you can put it in your car and you can follow me. And when she said that, I was thinking to myself, what is she talking about? And it was right about then that things started to really go south. This entitled Karen then repeated herself again. And at this point, I just laughed and I said, what on earth are you talking about? But she just kept repeating it louder and louder. I told her, no, I'm not delivering this tree. You said you don't want it delivered and didn't pay for the delivery. She then said to me, well, I didn't know I needed to pay. How much is it anyways? So I asked her where this tree would be going. And she eventually said it's a suburb about 15 minutes away. So I told her the price and she said to me, okay, follow me home and I'll pay you then. But I just said, no, that's not how it works. And instead, it would be delivered on Friday when she pays and that we need to go back inside and get this sale going. After some more time of yelling instructions at me and talking to her brother in another language, I put the tree next to the shop and she came up to keep yelling at me to deliver the tree and that she would pay me when I followed her home. And at this point, I was done. I yelled at her in the same tone that she had been yelling at me. I said to her, I can't. My car cannot fit that tree. Only the company truck can deliver this. I also can't drive the truck. It is literally impossible for me to deliver the tree even if I wanted to. And guess what? I really don't want to. After a bit more, she finally realized it wasn't going to happen. Now, this entitled Karen had this really weird thing, as did her brother, where they would not talk or interact with the female staff members. So when I took her inside and the other owner was at the register, she literally would not talk to her. I told the owners what was happening and that this lady needed to organize a delivery, and then I just went and walked off. This lady then screams at me, excuse me, and because I was going, I spun around and I snapped back. I said to her, she will get your delivery details, she can help you out. Well, this entitled Karen basically just walked off back to her car and they just started driving off. We had no delivery payment, we had no number, we didn't even have an address or even her name. I had to run out to their car and stop them. She wouldn't give me her address, and when she finally did, when I looked it up on Google Maps, it simply didn't exist. So this lady had literally paid for a tree and we had no way to get it to her. The following day, the brother rings up wanting to know about the delivery. At this point, it's Thursday and it's a day before our deliveries. I had told the work group chat what had happened, so everybody knew what was going on if these people came back. Anyways, one of our female staff members answered the phone and tells this guy everything I said and how they need to pay before we can deliver it. He simply wouldn't listen to her, but instead he kept interrupting her and just straight up complaining. It ended up with her telling him to basically get lost and then hanging up. Now, she did this because she thought that we could refund their credit card and never serve them ever again. However, they paid in cash, so another staff member had to call them back, smooth all of this over again, and have him come back in with his van and collect the tree. And honestly, I really hope they never come back. Wow, those people are seriously insane. Like, the way they interacted with customer service was so unacceptable. In my opinion, customer service goes both ways. You have to not only be good with customers, but for the customer themselves, you need to show some semblance of respect for the people who are serving you. Otherwise, you can't expect to get anything done. I can't stand when people act like this and they're shouting at you, they're refusing to listen, and they're demanding that you do it their way. All of that just adds up to a complete headache and something that nobody ever wants to deal with. So for the sake of your store and everybody else in it, I also hope these people never come back either. Because seriously, these people sound like a piece of work. And I know if I was in that situation, I would have wanted to walk away and tell them off as well. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk refuses to give me his ID so that I can complete his purchase of cigarettes, but instead he decides to make a big scene and an absolute fool of himself, causing my coworkers and I to bust up about his stupidity. Here's what happened. So at the grocery store that I work at, our policy is that you have to have an ID for all purchases of cigarettes. If your ID is a driver's license or a state ID, ID, we have to scan the back of it. Well, on this night, I'm running the front end, but currently watching the service desk as well, which is where we keep all of our cigarettes. And lo and behold, a customer comes up to the desk wanting to buy cigarettes. I've interacted with this guy before and he's a pain to deal with, so I already know that this is going to be a rough one. I scan the cigarettes on the register and I ask for his identification. He pulls out his wallet but doesn't take his license out of the holder. I tell him that I need to scan the back of it, and he says that he can't take it out and tells me to just manually enter the date. I tell him that I can't do that because I need to scan the back of it. He says to type the date in again, and I say no again. He then says that he wants to talk to the manager. Now, the store manager is not there, so I page the assistant manager up and let him deal with this guy. The guy talks to him and the assistant manager backs me up, telling him that I need to scan the back of it. This weird guy then proceeds to go off on him, and then he starts to go off on this stupid rant about some dumb stuff. He claims that for his ID, he would pull it out for a state trooper, but he wouldn't pull it out for us, which is him effectively saying that he was lying to me when he said that he couldn't take it out earlier. He also said that whenever he goes to a different store, they type the date in and it's no problem, to which we all wondered why he didn't just go over there and get cigarettes. And then he said that us scanning his ID was infringement on his rights. He ended his rant by threatening to sue us and then storming out of the store, and then we just laughed and went about our business. Now, I know what you're thinking. This has to be it, right? Well, unfortunately, no, because this guy clearly wanted more. About 45 minutes later, we get a phone call. The desk clerk picks it up, and it's from a customer wanting to talk to the store manager. The assistant manager has left, so she pages up our nighttime person in charge, who just so happened to witness the previous interaction. They come up, pick up the phone, listen for a minute, then they point at me and mouth, "This is your guy." Yes, the guy called the store to further complain, claiming that I had singled him out, which is really weird because this guy was throwing a temper tantrum while also being the only customer at the desk. And I guess with that in mind, you probably would draw attention to yourself. This moron then went on to say how I asked him for his ID about 4 times just to try and scan the back of it, and now he wanted to make an appointment with the manager. So the manager's name was given off, while also telling him when the next time our manager would be in the store. And after we hung up the phone, we laughed some more and just went back to work. Fast forward, and when I came back the next day, I asked if anyone had called complaining about me, but they said no. So I guess this weird guy eventually just gave up. Yeah, that guy clearly had some issues. First and foremost, you have to pull your ID out if you want to buy cigarettes. Like, they have to scan the back of it. It's probably like the law where you're from. And if someone seriously can't understand that, then they're the one with the problem. I bet it's one of those point-of-sale systems where the cashier probably couldn't even complete the purchase without scanning the customer's ID in the first place. Like, there's probably so many checks and balances in place just to make sure that nothing slips through the system. And I personally think that's a really good system to have. That way you know you're not giving out any cigarettes to anybody underage. And this guy absolutely knew that. He just wanted to be difficult. I mean, come on, how hard is it to pull out your ID? If this guy really wanted his cigarettes, he would have gone to the other store who just types in his date of birth as well as his other information. Which, by the way, there's a good chance he was just straight up lying. This guy was trying to pull a fast one and he didn't want to conform to the system. So good for you and your assistant manager for having your back. This guy was a complete weirdo. And hopefully for the sake of you and everybody else around you, this guy never comes back ever again. Every day of my job, I get treated like absolute garbage. Customers lie about me and try and scam me out of my tips. And at this point, I'm so completely exhausted and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 20-year-old female and I haven't been socially great in life. And it's mostly because I'm simply just too shy. I was homeschooled for 5 years as a kid and my parents are both introverts. So social skills aren't exactly my forte. I didn't used to hate everything as much as I do now. I'm not mean or anything like that, and I try to be kind and treat others the way I want to be treated. I was made fun of in middle school, like typical middle school stuff. Once I was in later high school, I just kept to myself and avoided all that. I was so glad to graduate and get a job and go to college. College is absolutely awesome. People are so nice and I feel so welcome there. I made friends and I love getting to know my classmates and studying together and just talking. However, my work life hasn't been as good. At almost every job I've had, someone decides they don't like me and bothers me until I quit. I'll be exhausted and customers will complain I'm not friendly enough and I'm being disrespectful because I may have asked them to repeat themselves if I couldn't hear them. It's so demanding and annoying. It's like high school garbage but on steroids with fully grown adults. People play favorites for no reason. People spin garbage to get you in trouble. Customers complain just to get free stuff. I mean, I had a job where the customers were so nice and it was so easy to be nice to them, but now it's so exhausting. Everyone
everyone is so mean. Everyone says maybe I'm the problem. And yeah, maybe I do suck at my job. I've always had coworkers who take my side and reassure me, but it's so hard to feel like I do okay when I have a million voices telling me differently. I told a woman the other day that a promotion we were running is over, and instead we have a different promotion going on. And I was super nice about it, and I tried to help her in any way that I could. But she wrote a review about how I wasn't personable. One thing that irritates me beyond end is how people just don't communicate with me. Even though I'm their server, I will check on them multiple times, and they'll say, yeah, it's great, thank you. And then at the end of their meal, they scream for the manager and then complain, and then they stiff me a tip. Like, seriously, I checked on you, and you said it was great, and you ate the entire meal. How was I supposed to know you weren't happy? At this point, I become so bitter. I just don't care anymore. And as you can tell, I become so upset at everyone and everything. I'm sick of being told to smile. It's so easy to smile when they're kind and normal. My personal issue is it's hard to hide my anxiety and be chipper when someone is so rude to me. I'll be calm and composed, but then they complain about my personality. Most of my coworkers and managers say I'm sweet and I'm appreciated, but working customer service for 4 years has drained me. When I'm at school or at home, I'm myself, but when I clock in, I feel like a zombie. I just feel so drained, but tuition and gas don't pay for themselves, so I guess I'll just have to keep fake smiling for now, even though my work life really sucks. Honestly, I completely understand where you're coming from. Working customer service across the board can really suck. You deal with entitled Kevins and Karens all day. You deal with people trying to treat you like garbage just to get their way. You're gonna find people trying to scam you and get you in trouble on purpose. And sometimes it's all just for no legitimate reason in the slightest. Maybe they're having a bad day, so guess what? You're gonna have a bad day as well. And that's not fair at all. Like, that literally is so unfair for you. You work so hard to do a good job. You try your very best to be a good customer service worker, only to then get stabbed in the back by coworkers as well as customers alike. And trust me, I completely understand where you're coming from. I know one trick that really worked for me when I was more involved in customer service is just to take the stance that, you know what, none of these people know me, and they definitely have no idea the struggles I go through every day. Their bad attitude is not a reflection of my customer service. I know that I'm doing a good job because, you know what, my manager and my coworkers say I am. And those are honestly the only people I need to impress. So when a customer comes in and they're treating you like garbage, just remember that it's all on them. It's not on you. They are clearly the ones with a problem, and honestly, no matter how hard you work, someone is always going to be upset. Am I the jerk for changing my plans last minute and abandoning my daughter and her husband after they invited themselves on my vacation with my wife for our 40th anniversary? Here's what happened. My wife and I have always dreamed of celebrating our 40th anniversary with a luxurious vacation. Just the two of us reliving the romance of our early years. We had it all planned out for years now, and we were excited beyond words. Well, enter our adult daughter by the name of Jane. Jane and her husband caught wind of our plans and promptly invited themselves and their 2 children along. They have a 9-year-old female and a 5-year-old male. I originally put my foot down and told them that this trip was just for us, which did upset her some, but my wife has a hard time saying no to Jane, as she is the youngest of our children and our only daughter, and she didn't want to hurt her feelings, so she reluctantly agreed to let them join. I wasn't thrilled about it at the time, but I wanted to make my family happy, and I knew my wife was also okay with the idea of a family trip. Even if she was heartbroken, we wouldn't get a romantic trip, so we just went along with it. The place we were originally going was not child-friendly, so we changed course and decided on an all-inclusive, family-friendly resort. We paid for the resort and our grandchildren's plane tickets. Jane and her husband only had to pay for their own airfare. Now here's where things get a little bit complicated. As the vacation got closer, I started having a change of heart. I realized that our 40th anniversary was a once-in-a-lifetime milestone, and I wanted to honor it in a way that was true to our original plans. My wife and I might not be able to afford a trip like this again for quite some time, and it's something that we always wanted to do. So without consulting anybody, I switched our tickets last minute to go to the romantic destination that my wife and I had originally planned for. I did not tell Jane or her husband. I didn't even tell my wife until the day before our flight left, which was a day before Jane's flight left for their vacation. It wasn't an easy decision, and I feel incredibly guilty about it, but I wanted our 40th anniversary to be special. I wanted it to be the intimate celebration we had always hoped for. We called Jane after we landed to tell her, and she was extremely upset, to say the least. She thought of the idea that we were going to look after our grandkids so she and her husband could have some alone time, and now that I abandoned her, they would have to do it all themselves. I hung up on them when my son-in-law started
started shouting, and my wife and I just enjoyed the rest of our trip. They came back this same day we did, but have not answered any of our text messages, and Jane seems to be completely ignoring me. My wife told me she vastly preferred our trip to the family trip that we would have taken, but she still doesn't like how Jane is mad at us and wants me to apologize. But you know what? I'm not sure I want to after learning that Jane and her husband were using us for free babysitting and a free trip, but I do feel like I should just keep the peace. So am I the jerk for changing our trip destination last minute and leaving Jane and her family to fend for themselves? What should I do? You are not the jerk at all. This is honestly so hilarious to me because clearly Jane and her husband had ulterior motives. They thought they had free babysitters for a vacation that they had already imposed upon. Like they literally invited themselves. How much of a dirtbag do you have to be to do that on someone else's vacation? Not to mention the fact that they weren't going to watch their kids at all. They were going to throw them at you and your wife and be like, okay, you're going to watch them while we enjoy your 40th anniversary. Like, no, I don't think so. If I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. There's no way I would have gone on that vacation, and I would have done it the exact same way as well. Like, look, I get it. You should have said no the first time and left it at that. Let them feel bad, let them be angry, whatever. But you know what? With all things considered, you had to do exactly what you needed to do so that your wife and yourself could enjoy your time together. So no, you're not the jerk. Jane and her husband are clearly incredibly selfish, and going on that vacation with them would have been a massive mistake. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that she's no longer invited to our house after she slowly but surely tried to take over our guest bedroom? Here's what happened. So I'm a 27-year-old female and my husband is also 27, and we got married a year back. We had been dating for 10 years and most of his family knew about us. I went to his sister's wedding because I was invited and it was a nice experience. I have grown up to be very social and career-oriented and really valued education. My husband is the same, and that's how we really connected with each other. My sister-in-law, however, has a different mindset. She got married at a very young age and chose to have a family while also choosing not to pursue a college degree. However, she is a complete brat and has always been said yes for everything. For example, she had a 3-day wedding in Italy with over 120 guests. She doesn't hate me but doesn't love me either. And trust me, the feelings are mutual. We just don't connect. We recently got a new house and threw a housewarming party for all of his family, and everyone loved the house. We have an extra guest bedroom just in case, and his sister absolutely loved the house, which she said about 50 times, and said that she would move some of her daughter's stuff here in the extra room because we have too much space and she doesn't want to carry it whenever she comes. Now, we live in New York and she comes from New Mexico. I really didn't get the logic and politely declined and said we have a lot of guests coming every now and then, and we do not have spare space for her daughter's clothing or her toys. Now, she wasn't happy about that, but honestly, I didn't care. It's been 4 months since we bought the house, and she's come a total of 53 days. And yes, I absolutely kept count. Most of the time, she comes unannounced, claiming that she was visiting someone or she was in the neighborhood. I mean, what kind of person would fly from New Mexico to New York just to be in the neighborhood? Anyways, I slowly started to realize that she had started putting up her pictures and redecorating our guest bedroom, and I honestly lost my mind when I saw this. I told my husband, and he said I'm overthinking it and that she is just trying to be friends with me. When she left last week, I packed a box of all of her things, which she very conveniently forgot in our guest bedroom, and I shipped it over to her place. She got very angry and eventually called me and started screaming at me. I told her to stop overreacting and stop considering our house as hers and that she's no longer welcome to come over. I told my husband everything and that I would not entertain her anymore. He agreed to what I had said and told his sister that she needs to stop doing this or she is no longer going to be welcome. Well, she called my in-laws and literally every person that we know and told them that we were being jerks. Our phones have been buzzing with text messages and calls with everybody saying how inconsiderate we are and that what we did was really wrong. But I told everyone if they're seriously that interested, they need to keep her in their house and stop bothering me. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk in this situation. Your sister-in-law is being weird. She's coming to your house uninvited, and it seems like she's slowly taking over that guest bedroom, all without trying to discuss it with you first. That is really weird in my opinion. Now, I don't know if she's in some kind of distress situation or anything like that, but regardless of the circumstance, it really is inappropriate for her to be acting that way. Like, you don't just do that to somebody else's house. You have no right to do that, and honestly, you need to ask people first. So with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk at all. all. After all, this is your house, and if she doesn't like it, then she can stay with another family member instead of trying to force her way into your house. My entitled aunt invites herself to my private dinner in celebration of my little sister's accomplishments, and after ordering the most expensive food items on the menu at the restaurant we were going to, they then refused to pay for their portion of the bill, claiming that I said I was going to pick it up from the very beginning. But as a result, I refused to pay for their bill, and now I'm being called a massive jerk for not footing their bill. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I will start off with saying that I have an aunt on my dad's side of the family. She's 50 years old and has 5 kids ranging from 20 all the way until 12 years old. She's always been known to be a freeloader and taken advantage of situations and people. For example, one time my dad and I were planning on going to the drive-in, and my dad stupidly told her. She asked if her kids could be included too, and I felt so angry because this happened every time me and my dad had something fun planned when it was just me and him, and that is just one of many instances that have happened in my life, so hopefully you can get the idea. So anyways, last week I wanted to celebrate my little sister from getting her driver's permit, and I wanted all of our family to go to Olive Garden, and by that I mean all of us who live in the same home. I told everyone to clear their schedules for Friday afternoon because I don't want anyone to feel left out. Well, that's where I messed up, because my dad told my aunt and told her that she could tag along without telling me first. We showed up to Olive Garden at around 4:30 p.m. and I asked to be seated at a table for 5 people, and the people I had in mind were me, my dad, my 2 sisters, and my grandfather. But that's when my dad stepped in and asked if we could instead get a table for 12. I asked why, and that's when he told me exactly what he did. I was so angry, especially because my aunt and my little sister have a history, but I didn't think much of it because I wasn't expecting what was coming up. We're finally sitting down, and around 30 minutes later, she shows up with all of her kids. We eventually ordered, and she kept ordering expensive dishes and lots of drinks, and I was kind of in awe considering that she lives off of food stamps, which honestly I don't shame anyone who does, but she kept ordering like she was Scrooge McDuck on just another Tuesday evening. The bill eventually comes up, and I asked for her to split it. She says in such a grating voice, "What do you mean split the bill? I thought you were paying for us." And that's when it clicked. She only came along to get free food. I immediately glared at my dad, who shifted the blame straight to me. He said, "Why would you offer to pay and then not follow through?" I thought to myself, oh, I don't know, maybe because I wasn't expecting to pay for another 6 people. I ended up asking the waitress how much it would be because I didn't want to ruin the mood and my little sister's accomplishment. Well, the bill came out to about $557. Excluding what me and my family ate, namely my dad, my 2 sisters, and my grandpa, it would only be about $243. And here's the part where things get a little bit spicy. I outright refused to pay for her and her kids' meals, as I felt 2 of them were still kids, but I never invited her myself, let alone agreed to pay for her entire bill. My dad is now calling me a jerk because he had to pay for it with his credit card. But here's the thing, I don't think I did anything wrong. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk for not picking up the entire bill, especially since I wasn't planning on paying for my aunt and her kids in the first place? What should I do? There is no way you are the jerk here. Like seriously, how is this hard for anybody to understand? For starters, you were not planning on having them come along for your dinner. You were just trying to celebrate your little sister's accomplishment. This was supposed to be something simple that all of you could enjoy. And then here comes your aunt trying to spoil the mood and completely ruin the evening. And that's not fair for you at all. And it sounds like you were willing and ready to pay for quite a bit of this meal. Like you had money set aside so that you could drop hundreds of dollars on the bill and take care of everything. But in my opinion, the second your dad invited your aunt as well as her stupid kids, at that moment, that promise of paying for the bill was completely out the window. You were not prepared to pay for that many people. You were not told ahead of time, and in fact, he told you in line when you're about to sit down. I mean, seriously, how awful is that? If I was in your shoes, that would be the last time I would ever trust my dad with my plans ever again. He's clearly just gonna tell his sister, and that's gonna spoil the mood altogether. And the fact that this aunt wasn't willing to pay for anything that they ordered, and they were also so willing to get all this food for the night under the assumption that you would pay for it is so disgusting. For context, the original poster is 18 years old. Like they're saving up, but they don't have that kind of money. It is unacceptable for them to try and take advantage of you and then get upset when you can't pony up for the bill. So no, you are not the jerk here. Your aunt is in the wrong and your dad is absolutely in the wrong as well. And honestly, if he wanted to invite them without telling you first, that he's the one who is absolutely responsible for their bill. will. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
Would I be the jerk if I told my brother what his wife and kids were saying about me while he wasn't there? Because right now I'm incredibly hurt, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I have 3 kids. I have a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old. Their dad left when the oldest was 5 years old because we aren't worth the stress. I was terrified because we were about to be homeless, but I managed to find a job. I had not seen my family since they cut me off for getting pregnant as a teenager, but my older brother found me and made me move in with him and his family. We live in their basement rent-free, and it's more than enough. I feel a little awkward about his wife and his kids. He has 2 preteen daughters, but they're always nice to me and my kids when we see each other. Well, it was my brother's birthday yesterday, and we were all upstairs having dinner. My brother left the house to get something, so he wasn't home for a little bit. My son accidentally spilled some juice on himself, so I took him to get cleaned. He then got all worked up and tired, so I quickly put him to bed. My daughters came down as well, and I sat with them for a tiny bit until they fell asleep. After that, I was going back upstairs when I heard my sister-in-law and my nieces talking about me. I heard one of the daughters say, "Did she really get pregnant at 15? And then the mom responded by saying, "Yes, and look how she ended up. She's lucky your dad is so kind because you know she was pretty much homeless before we took her in. You guys better not get pregnant. I don't want you ending up like her." I mean, my situation is pretty pathetic, and it's true. I'm lucky that my brother found me. And you know what? I was going to ignore her, but then she started telling the girls my entire life story. Again, this is okay, but she was telling them some very embarrassing details and making me out to be a horrible human being. She told them I did all sorts of substances while I was pregnant, which is definitely not true, and she told them I probably had a bunch of mental illnesses, which also I don't. She also said that I was probably going to abandon my kids or give them up if my brother had not found me. Her kids both said something like, "Oh yeah, I can see her doing that. She doesn't seem entirely all there." Now let me tell you something. It really hurt to hear how badly they thought of me, and I regret telling my brother and sister-in-law what happened to me. I know I'm not a role model and probably should be ashamed of myself, but I didn't think they thought so lowly of me. I just went to bed and thought about ignoring it, but now I'm wondering if I should tell my brother. I mean, it's childish and petty of me, right? I mean, I feel like it would be pretty petty to go crying to my brother about his wife and his kids. I just don't know if I can look at any of them in the eye anymore, but I don't want to risk being kicked out. So honestly, would I be the jerk if I told my brother what they said and potentially start a fight or an argument or at least stress them out? What should I do? What an awful situation to be stuck in. Like honestly, you had nowhere to go, you were completely destitute, and you thought going to your brother would be a good place for you to stay, only to then find out that your sister-in-law and her stupid kids are stabbing you in the back. And that's exactly what they're doing, by the way. They're turning against you and treating you like garbage for literally no reason. Like seriously, how dare they throw dirt in your face when your life couldn't get any more complicated? The fact that they would say that while you're not around, especially from your sister-in-law, all under the assumption that this is some kind of like teaching moment for her kids, that in my opinion is so disgusting. And I think above anything else, you now know that this is not somewhere you want to stay long term. Because just look at the way they're acting towards you and your kids. They seriously said, "Oh yeah, she would probably get rid of her kid if she wanted to," while also claiming that you're on some kind of substances and that you're mentally ill. It's not like your life ended up this way on purpose. It really does sound like you had a bad hand in life and things really went south. And if it was up to your sister-in-law and her stupid kids, they would probably convince anybody around them that you're a bad person, even though you're not. Their behavior is so reprehensible and it's so disgusting. And if I was in your shoes, I would start the process of getting my own place, save up money and find somewhere else to live. You do not need that in your life. I can't really say whether you should or shouldn't approach anybody about this situation. I mean, this really could lead to some weird consequences, such as you getting kicked out before you're ready to move out, or even just causing tension in the household. And it all really sucks because they're talking garbage about you in their home. I mean, they own it. This is their place. They could tell you to get lost at the drop of a hat. And while I don't think they're that cruel, I think that's a possibility you need to think about in your head when you go through this situation. But I know for me personally, I would be finding a new place to live, something that I can rent so that I can have some place for myself and my kids. So honestly, hopefully this all works out for you. And hopefully if you do decide to talk to him, I would just make sure first that this wouldn't jeopardize my living situation, especially if you don't have anywhere else
you could possibly go to. Today, I messed up by giving myself an awful lopsided haircut. And trust me, this is definitely the reason why I didn't have a third date with a girl I was interested in. Here's what happened. So for full disclosure, this happened actually a few years ago during COVID, but I felt it was a funny story to reflect on now. Anyways, I had a date with a girl, and we're gonna call that girl Kate. Kate is not her real name. It was locked down at the time, and so the dates people were going on were just socially distanced walking dates. I met Kate on a dating app, and we had been on one fairly nice and civil walking date, walking around the mountainous region of the city we lived in at the time. And because it went well, we decided to arrange for a second date. Now, I realized by the time the second date came around that I really needed a haircut. It was in the middle of the pandemic though, so no barbers were open at all. About 7 to 8 months earlier in the first lockdown, my ex had given me a buzz cut, and I figured I would just do the same this time. For some reason though, I left doing this until the morning of the date. So that morning I woke up about 3 hours before the date and began shaving off the hair from the top of my head with an electric razor. The electric razor was a cheap rechargeable razor. My hair grows back really quickly, so at this point I had quite long floppy hair all around. After starting straight away by lopping off the front right portion of my head, the razor started to die. I thought to myself, okay, no reason to worry. I can just do this with a razor plugged into the wall. Well, that morning, I learned that most electronic rechargeable razors, especially the cheap ones, actually use up more energy than they get back from being on charge, which means if it's low on charge, it still will not work when plugged in. Now, at this point, I had lopped off the long part of the front right of my hair. It was not a stylish look. My roommate at the time, we'll call him Jake, also not his real name, he found it absolutely hilarious. We decided we would leave the razor to charge for an hour and try again later, making this incredibly close to the date I would have with Kate. After an hour or so, we tried again. The issue was, though, that the razor, without much charge, was very slow and didn't work very well. With a guard on the razor, that gives you the exact length you want for the cut, but it struggled to cut anything off when its power was dying. We managed to lop a little more off of it, but even still, it was so lopsided. Jake then had the idea that he would take the guard off and just carefully try and cut some of the back off without getting close to the scalp. Well, the obvious happened. He ended up slipping and shaved a huge section straight down the scalp, and he found this absolutely hilarious. At this point, I had run out of time, and I needed to leave for the date. What I had at this point was that most of the right side of the front of my head was shaved to about 1 to 2 centimeters. The left side was completely uncut though, and at the back of my head, it was also mostly uncut except for one huge chunk that was completely shaved down to the scalp. I remember optimistically thinking, okay, maybe she will think this is some kind of punk hairstyle. Well, she definitely didn't. I wore a hat to the date, but it was obvious something crazy was going on underneath. So I told her the story of what happened and hoped it would come across as endearing and charming. I offered to take off the hat and we could have a laugh about it, but unfortunately though, Kate really didn't want me to take the hat off, and I could tell that she was definitely embarrassed to be seen with me. It was at this point that I realized that actually maybe she wasn't right for me. The person I wanted to be with and to spend time with would have found such a situation as quite funny and amusing, and would love to joke around about the comedic predicament that I had found myself in that morning. Now look, I have nothing against Kate. She is completely entitled to her preferences, but at that point, I guess I realized that we aren't really right for each other. So we had an amicable second date, and as you could probably guess, there was no third date. She probably thought something like, God, I don't want to be seen with someone so silly and goofy like this guy. Which, you know what, if she thought that, then fair enough. I personally realized that I would rather be with someone who would enjoy these things, instead of being ashamed to even be near me. Yeah, Kate sounds like a giant stick in the mud. Like seriously, how can she not find this hilarious? Here you are on a date with someone and they have like an honest moment where they're like, yeah, I messed up big time. I shaved my head wrong and now it looks like garbage. You want to point and laugh with me? Like something like that really does go a long way in my opinion, and it brings you down to like a human level where you can really connect with them. Like if I went on a date with someone and they said something along those lines, or even something within that same vein of thought, and they're laughing as well, then I absolutely would join in and start laughing. Not at their expense, but maybe just at the situation in general. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like honestly, this really shouldn't have been that big of a deal. So seriously, you didn't do anything wrong. Sure, you messed up in like shaving your head by accident, I totally get that. But you know what? At least you learned that Kate is really not a nice person. This was clearly somebody who's incredibly stuck up and very entitled, and is clearly someone who's like a giant red flag. Like talk about dodging a train. Because truly, if a girl stops dating you because of a bad haircut, then trust me, this is not someone that you want to have a relationship with. My boyfriend has horrible anger management problems, and as a result, he is always having some kind of tantrum or yelling match with me over the dumbest things possible. And at this point, I'm so tired of dealing with this, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I first want to start off by saying that I love my boyfriend. We've been together for 5 years. We each have our own place, and we don't live together for several reasons. But one of the reasons is his anger issues. He is wonderful a lot of the time, but the other part, he is freaking out about this, that, and the other. Everyday inconveniences throw him for a loop. He deals with stress really badly, and yet he seems to look for ways to make his life more stressful. Now, for the sake of brevity, I'll just get to the latest issue. Due to things that we both have going on in our lives, I've only been able to spend Saturday night through to Sunday afternoon at his place. However, each time for months now, something will happen. For example, last night I went over, I was doing stuff in the kitchen like general cleanup and stuff like that, mostly because he's not really the best at keeping things tidy. He was opening the fridge, and when he did, a pizza box fell out. He then started with the usual amount of swearing. I assumed he had it under control, and I turned to go back to the dishwasher. And then, at that moment, a bunch of soda fell out of the fridge and onto the floor. Now, I don't know exactly what caused this, but one of the sodas spilled inside the fridge, while a couple of them fell on the floor and spilled there as well. And sure, I get it, that's really frustrating. However, he starts shouting. He starts swearing and screaming at me to hurry up, demanding that I help him out and get this done, as if this is some kind of huge emergency. He's screaming at me saying, "Move it, why do you always move in slow motion?" Stuff like that. I think I almost have PTSD from dealing with this stuff all the time. I mean, I end up shouting back at him, because unfortunately this is not out of the ordinary. But with him, it's to the point where I can't stand being yelled at and blamed for stuff that I didn't do. I also can't understand how everything is always turned into a crisis. Even just opening up the fridge door. He's either incredibly clumsy or he has incredibly bad luck. So then we're both shouting at each other and saying angry things, and then at that point, I just grabbed my purse and I left. He texts me apologizing and asking me to please come back, begging me to not leave and ruin our weekend. But you know what? I drove home anyways. And after doing that, I feel bad and guilty. Like I already know he's like this and under stress and has anger issues, and I should just go out for a few minutes until we can both calm down, but instead I run away, making everything worse. And now we don't get to spend the weekend together at all. I have no idea what to do anymore. This scenario has played out several times over the past few months. He never learns how to control his temper, and I never learn not to engage and just step out until we cool down. I'm wondering if couples therapy would potentially help us in this situation, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, your boyfriend sounds like a piece of work. And before I dissect the way this man acts, I first off want to say that none of this is your fault. The fact that you left and got out of that situation is honestly a really good thing, because in my opinion, someone being verbally aggressive like that, especially in the way that you're describing, very quickly becomes physical before you realize it. So escaping the situation is honestly not a bad idea, and that's not your fault in the slightest. But seriously, let's talk about your boyfriend real quick, because this guy does not sound like a good person. He doesn't sound like a good boyfriend, regardless of how much you try to claim you love him. Because you know what? If he loved you in return, he wouldn't scream at you about everything that happens in his life. Like, look at the way he acted with the refrigerator. Like, first off, you don't live there. It's not like you stacked the pizza boxes wrong. This guy did that himself. He's the one that probably put it in there incorrectly, and then when it inevitably just falls out of the fridge, he tries to shift the blame on you. And that is so unacceptable. You didn't stack it like that. You didn't cause the soda to spill out all over the floor. Like, the way he's treating you is so inappropriate. So in my opinion, that makes him the problem and not you. You have not done anything wrong. And I really think that you didn't ruin anything about your weekend. But instead, he's the one that ruined it with his awful attitude. Like, think about it for a second. You're constantly being yelled at, and in this post, you're acting like this is perfectly ordinary in terms of like a relationship, and you're almost trying to blame yourself for the way your boyfriend is reacting. I don't know about you, but this is not someone I would even be able to spend any time with. He sounds like a complete basket case. Sure, he probably has some redeeming qualities when he's not screaming at you, but how on earth can you even begin to focus on any of those if he's acting like a complete psychopath all the other times you're around him? I honestly don't know how you put up with this for 5 years, and I know for a fact I would not be able to put up with this kind of behavior. So truly, I wish you the absolute best of luck with this relationship, because it does not not sound like a healthy one in the slightest. And also, as a final note, I don't care how much stress he's under. This guy has no right to talk to you like that and blow up on you about the smallest things going wrong in his life. Because what he's doing is absolutely a choice. And in my opinion, I do not believe that you should have to be an emotional and verbal punching bag for all the problems that he refuses to have addressed. An entitled jerk demands that I give him my bike that I was riding, all because I was too short to ride it. But when I say no, this guy freaks out, demanding that I give him the bike, all while his girlfriend tries to hold him back from fighting me. And I have honestly never been more freaked out about an encounter in my life. Here's what happened. So this story takes place a couple of years ago, back when I was still in middle school. So every Sunday, I would go to the flea market in the morning with my grandfather and my cousin who was in high school at the time. We will leave the market early because there wasn't anything to buy or catch our eye, so we either went to my grandfather's house or my cousin's house to hang out. And on that day, it just so happened to be my cousin's. And so we're just hanging out. We're talking, playing video games, that sort of thing, all the way until we got bored. So we thought we would go outside and ride bikes, with my cousin having his bike in the garage. My cousin is tall and I'm shorter than him by a good bit, so the bike that I was given to use was a little bit too tall for me. So I had to do that thing where I hopped on it just to even ride it in the first place. And trust me, this fact will be important later. So we're riding around and my cousin wanted something from the store, so we started heading in that direction. He was ahead of me and he went over the median from where the store's at that has a tree and some plants on a concrete curb. He gets over just fine and went into the store, but I didn't think that I could make it without falling on accident. So I got off the bike, not fully off the side of it, but with the rail between my legs as I'm trying and struggling to anyone who sees me to move over the curb. And I guess in this instant, this action made me a massive target to the entitled guy that was coming up. I suddenly hear over my shoulder this guy start to say to me, "Hey, give me your bike, you're too short for it." Now at this point I look at him and I see a guy with his girlfriend, and he definitely looks around the same age as my cousin, but he is a bit shorter than him. He then repeats what he said, but this time around I say some sarcastic remark or something that clearly he just didn't like, because the next thing I see is him getting mad to the point where he's about to walk over to where I'm at and probably beat me up and take my bike. But suddenly his girlfriend stops him and kind of pleads to him and literally has to pull on his arm and walk him away from doing something stupid. And the worst part about it is that I can see based on her reaction that this isn't something new to her. Eventually, after that act of aggression, they eventually walk away. Now, I eventually make it over the curb and I wait for my cousin outside, and thankfully it's not long before he exits the store. And that's when I see something that honestly blows my mind. As we're leaving, it's the same guy coming up towards us, but this time it's without his girlfriend, with his hood also pulled up just to try and hide his identity. But you know what? I see his face, and I recognize him in all of the same clothing that he's wearing. This guy rides past us on his own bike, but this time I'm not alone, and he focuses on my cousin who's next to me. Now, in my opinion, I think that this guy probably went back to try and finish what he wanted to do, namely to get the bike and try and beat me up in the process. But then he was having second thoughts when seeing my cousin, and knowing that if he wanted a fight, he's probably going to lose. Now, from that point on, I didn't bother paying attention to him, and we make our way back to my cousin's house, with me eventually telling my aunt and grandma about what happened. My aunt, who looks very concerned, says that I shouldn't let anyone stay in the house. And honestly, to this day, I'm still not sure what would have happened if my cousin wasn't with me, because I'm willing to bet that this encounter would have been awful. Yeah, that is a scary situation. Can you imagine riding with your older cousin just to go up to the store and maybe get, I don't know, like some sodas or something like that, and then suddenly this guy comes up and he's like, "Hey, give me your bike. You're too short for it. I should have it." Like, what in the world are you talking about, buddy? I'm not gonna give you my bike. It's not even my bike. It's my cousin's. Like, first of all, this guy sucks at being a thief. I mean, who in their right mind would be like, "Hey, can I steal from you?" and then get upset when someone's like, "No, idiot, get away from me." And I think the original poster's right. This guy absolutely was coming back without his girlfriend around just so he could rough up the original poster. That's absolutely what was gonna happen, but then thankfully he bailed once he saw this cousin riding with this guy. So honestly, good for you for having your cousin to back you up. This seriously could have been a scary situation, and I worry that if your cousin wasn't around, this very easily could have gotten ugly. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My job has not scheduled me for almost 3 weeks now, and now I'm at the point where I'm considering filing for unemployment, and overall, I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So, I used to enjoy enjoy my job at a restaurant. That is, until new management came in. Shortly after, I experienced some very inappropriate treatment from a customer, if you know what I mean. And I'm talking something you absolutely cannot do to somebody when they're trying to do their job. And hopefully you can catch my drift. Now, although the customer was initially talked to, they ended up doing it again, leading to a 1-month ban. During this time, I noticed several things. For starters, my hours were reduced, and some of my coworkers seemed to have a problem with me. Also, the only time I had table complaints was when I was oversat and no apologies were given in the slightest. Furthermore, my hours were changed from the morning until the evening without my consent, and I faced issues regarding my occasional lateness, all because I'm a student, and lower managers were very aware that I would be late at times. The general manager brought up lateness and wrote me up, even for being 1 minute late. Now, this general manager also suggested I might work better alone after disclosing that I'm autistic, even though I had been willing to improve. I only received write-ups for refusing to work on Labor Day, despite being aware that most restaurants don't offer time and a half. And not only that, but also for being late in the past. These write-ups occurred after the problems I had with the customers, and it was all within a month of that customer being banned. And now I haven't been scheduled for almost 3 weeks, and I haven't been informed of my employment status at all. Now here's the thing, I never had any table complaints about me, besides the few times they oversat me, which of course they wouldn't ever apologize for, but would instead just say that I need better time management. And we're talking like 8 to 10 tables inside and outside the restaurant. Well, as I said, my hours started getting very awful and they started getting reduced. And when they changed my hours to the evening instead of the morning, it honestly threw me for a loop. I mean, I'm a student who lives in the cities and I was allowed to be late to work, but it's been a conversation between me and my lower manager, and he's the only one that understands. But the general manager wasn't aware of this conversation and decided to bring it up anytime I've ever been late since he's worked there, even down to being 1 minute late, which honestly really shocked me. Now, his excuse is that he brought this up because I was late that day, but I told the manager I have class that gets out very late on some days, and it's honestly not super consistent, so it's hard to get here on time. And truly, when this started happening, I was taken by surprise because I've never been told about this, so to be written up for it essentially made me feel a bit attacked. But you know what? I did acknowledge it, and I fixed my schedule to try and be more on time. And it just seemed odd to only look at me when other servers are notorious for being 30 minutes late every single day. My worst day was 15 minutes, which isn't an excuse, but all those days I have had a conversation about it. And when it comes to me being autistic, I honestly couldn't believe that they wanted me to work by myself. I disclosed that I was autistic in private, and he said to me that I need to communicate better, which I agreed with, and I've tried to work on it. Any issue that is brought up to me, I try to work on. I'm always willing to improve. I honestly think they have some sort of dislike towards me, as I did ask many blunt questions, and management found it rude. They thought I was questioning their authority, which is me truly wanting to understand what's going on in any given scenario. I obviously know they're trying to push me out, especially since they were hiring while I was still working there. But I don't want to quit because it's obviously what they want. Honestly, I'm at a loss. I'm not being scheduled at all, but I'm also not being told that I'm fired. It's been almost 3 weeks now, and I'm going to try and file for unemployment. Because honestly, this is all so sketchy, and I now just don't know what to do. It really does seem like your job is trying to push you out. That is so unfortunate. Here they are not even scheduling you for what, 3 weeks? Like, that is so unacceptable. How can you go from working every single week and then all of a sudden not be scheduled for almost a month? Like, I honestly don't blame you for saying, you know what, I'm gonna file for unemployment. Like, I do not need this for 1 second. It also seems like this is a case of retaliation, and I'm not entirely sure about like the details about it, but that wouldn't be a bad thing to investigate. Like, they really did decrease your hours and treat you like garbage ever since that one customer was really awful towards you. So with all things considered, I don't blame you for wanting to go for unemployment. These people are not scheduling you properly, and they're honestly treating you like garbage. And in my opinion, you do not deserve this in the slightest. Today, I messed up by hooking up with a foreigner who also has a girlfriend. And now I feel completely awful for the other girl. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So for reference, I'm a female first-year college student at a coastal college in the eastern United States. I was walking downtown one Friday night with my friends after leaving a music venue drunk when I make eye contact with a guy, but for an abnormally long amount of time. I mean, at least 10 seconds. I notice that he's cute and perhaps a little too old for me, but I'm a little drunk and I'm feeling bold. So I turn around and I walk up to him. I ask him for his Snapchat because that's the easiest way to talk to someone. And he just mutters to me and says, "I'm from Germany though." I tell him that I don't mind and I'd like to get to know him. He says okay day and we exchanged our Snapchat information. For a few days, he did not reach out, so I figured that he wasn't interested. So I think to myself, okay, whatever. But he eventually reached out and we began talking frequently. We tell each other all about each other. And this is where he tells me that he's studying in Germany to be a doctor. He talks about how he's on tour in the United States, while also talking about his hopes and dreams and his family, and I do all the same. I start to feel a sense of closeness to him, all before we even met up again. One night, he asked me to hang out with him and his friends before he left for a new city to visit in America, and I happily said yes. However, he is 23, and so are all of his friends, so he suggested bar hopping. Well, long story short, I get my fake ID taken, I get extremely embarrassed, but he decides to come up to my dorm with me. We talk for a while, and things eventually lead to something else, if you know what I mean. We end up spending the entire night telling each other so much about our lives and being extremely vulnerable with each other. Well, he had to leave the next morning for his flight, also he could go to the next US city on his list, and that's when he left. At this point, I'm left at home, and I also feel a little sad that it came to an end, but I do feel rather content, realizing that this was a one-night type of thing and I shouldn't become obsessed. I mean, I'm not delusional. I knew that he probably did this kind of stuff with a bunch of girls all the time. He is subjectively a very attractive man, and with that accent, I know other girls ate that up as well. But overall, I was still happy about it. Now, I expected him to not reach out much while he was on tour, and he didn't for a lot of it, but he would occasionally send me pictures of Vegas or San Francisco or even Hollywood Boulevard, or text and ask how I'm doing. He then told me that he's going to make a detour from his plans and come back to my town to see me. Now, obviously, this is very exciting for me, and I say yes, and we make arrangements for him to come and stay the night. So he flies back to me and comes over. And when he showed up, he greeted me with a necklace that he bought while he was gone. And it's one that matched his own necklace, and he even topped it off by putting the necklace on me. We again talk about our lives in depth. We talk about our future as well as his tour. We ended up staying up until about 4 in the morning just talking. And I couldn't tell you everything we discussed, but it was very intimate, and he is an extremely romantic person. Like when we woke up, he watched me get ready, telling me how beautiful I am and how upset he is to have to say goodbye, kissing me in between every step of my morning routine. Right before he left, he pulled me back into bed and told me to never settle for less, that whoever ends up with me is an extremely lucky man, and that I'm beautiful, intelligent, funny, and kind. He told me that he wants to one day fly me out to his home and show me where he lives. It was a very sweet moment for me, and I started crying because I don't think anyone's ever told me such nice things before in my life. I know though that men will say anything to get to do you know what, but this felt real, at least to some degree. We hug and kiss and tell each other to have a great life, and then he walked away. Later that day, he removed me as a friend from his Snapchat, and while I am pretty upset about this, again, I realized that this was not going to be a long-term situation, so eventually I was okay. I brushed it off as a cool meetup with an awesome person that I was lucky to meet, and it was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime person that I'll never forget. This goes on for about a month, and neither of us are reaching out at all. Fast forward to last night, and some guy adds me by search on Snapchat, and it's not a name I recognize, but I accept it anyways. He sends me a snap, and to my shock, it was the German, saying that he misses me so much. I then ask him why he's contacting me on a Snapchat of a person's name that isn't his. He then sends me paragraphs explaining that this was a fake Snapchat, that he has a long-term girlfriend back in Germany, and they are not doing well, and he wasn't sure if he really wanted to be with her. He told me that spending time with me was really great, and it was really refreshing for him, but he will never forget me, and I was more special to him than I realize. But he doesn't want her to find out, so he will be talking to me on this Snapchat because he doesn't want to lose contact with me. Now, after he told me this, I didn't say much. I just told him that while I do feel the same way, I feel that what he did was wrong, and I wasn't sure what to say. He said, I know, sleep well, and when you wake up, we will talk about this a little bit more. And seriously, I'm not sure what else there is to talk about. I mean, there is an Atlantic Ocean and a girlfriend dividing us. It's not like we're about to get married, but he was very special to me, and I'm ashamed to admit that I do want to talk to him more. I mean, I love the plot. He did block me on Instagram, and I can only assume so that his girlfriend can't find out. Now, I will probably stop talking to him and write this off as a crazy thing that happened to me in college, but I am so terribly sad. I feel guilty and terrible for the other girl in Germany, but he was the most memorable person I've ever met. Wow, that guy is super shady. Let me just tell you straight up, that is not someone you want to be in a relationship with. He is clearly okay with cheating on his actual girlfriend, and now he's trying to get with you as some kind of like supplemental of some kind or something like that. I mean, I'm kind of not surprised about why this guy's relationship is falling apart with his his girlfriend. Like, look at the way he treats her. He goes off into a foreign country and then sleeps around with another woman just to try and have some kind of fun. And worst of all, he doesn't even feel bad about it. If this guy was a good boyfriend, he would have been like, wow, I messed up and I shouldn't do that ever again. Like, his behavior is so unacceptable, it's seriously not even funny. So sure, you feel bad about helping this guy cheat on his girlfriend, but at least you can end it there if you really wanted to. I know if I was in your shoes, I would cut this guy off immediately and be like, no, I'm not gonna be around this guy. I'm not even gonna entertain talking to this guy. Like, his rationale is insane. So truly, if I was in your shoes, I would move along and not allow anyone to try and make me a side option. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own story. Today, I found out that my friend got fired from our job simply because she was my friend. And I am now completely stunned and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I want to say that every name in this story is gonna be fake. During my time at my current job, I've met a girl whose name will be Deanna. She was branded as the champion of the company and was kind of well liked amongst everyone at work. When me and my work team were seated on specific places, I found an empty seat by chance. Since nobody was using it at all, I went ahead and sat down to start my computer and get working. And as a matter of luck, I was sitting next to Deanna. Her part of the job was to check the metrics among the peers and bring support to whoever needed it. At first, we never interacted because I was kind of unengaged with meeting new people. But one day, I was changing my profile picture on Slack, as we were allowed to use whatever names and pictures we wanted, as long as we kept it safe for work, and Deanna spotted me switching to a SpongeBob picture, and then cracked a reference to the Nature Pants episode, and I turned around and she was looking at me with joy. We ended up talking nonstop about SpongeBob, and even ended up singing that Rip Pants song. At this point, we've hit it off, and while we would do our respective jobs, we would chit-chat and roll on the floor laughing at our nonsense. Time had passed and we became really close workmates, with Deanna often mentoring me to grow in the ranks of this job. At this point, I'm currently a floor support thanks to her, but suddenly Deanna went missing for several weeks, no trace of her, and when I tried contacting her, I didn't get a response either. Fast forward to February of this year, and we had all our team shuffled on orders from the clients because there was a lot of personal changes, and as a result, I would no longer sit beside her. After weeks of not showing up, she finally came back, but her personality took a turn. She was moody and felt like a shell of what used to be my best work pal. We distanced somewhat, although I still gave her my support if she needed anything. Deanna nodded and we went our separate ways to continue doing our job. Skip to March and I was taking a cigarette break. It was at this point when I was making my way back to the office, and Deanna met me directly back with her cheerful attitude, revealing that she was accepted to work somewhere else, and hugged me in a fit of joy. I couldn't help but feel happiness and sadness that she was going somewhere better, and that she would leave all of us behind. So it goes without saying that this was her 2 weeks notice, and eventually Deanna did leave. Fast forward again the last 2 weeks, and I was doing my work as per usual and supervising my team until I heard some gossip related to Deanna. I was a bit shocked to hear that my pal was dismissed instead of quitting, and that's when I chose to investigate further on the matter. Then, during one of our days off, I met with another one of my workmates. We'll call her Kelly. So far, she is the one who knows all the gossip within the office. Kelly revealed to me that Deanna indeed was fired. What happened on the spot left me dumbfounded at the time. It turns out that the manager demoted her to a regular agent after finding out that me and Deanna were hanging out together. She wasn't having it, and after falling out with him, Deanna attempted to reason with the manager, but he stated that on the orders of the client, she and several other agents will be laid off at the end of March. At that point, she took several weeks of vacation and returned for her final 2 weeks. To this day, we have remained good friends, and on our most recent hangouts for Halloween, Deanna revealed to me that she already sued the company for illegal termination. Now, I'm telling you this story during my lunch break because a couple of hours ago, a new manager was announced, and yes, the previous manager absolutely was fired, so I'm assuming that Deanna won her dispute in some kind of way. Wow, what an awful reason to let somebody go. Here you have a good work friend who's like there for you and takes care of you, they're mentoring you and helping you grow in the company, and then suddenly some jerk comes along and says, no, you're not allowed to have fun. Like seriously, what is the problem with enjoying yourself at work? It seems like people who suck at their job, or who are just managers who just hate having fun, they are the ones who have a problem with other people enjoying themselves. Like seriously, just get off people's backs. There's no reason Deanna and the original poster can't enjoy their time together. They weren't doing anything wrong. They were still getting their work done and they were being productive, but at the same time, they were just choosing to be good friends. Like seriously, what's wrong with that? that. And on top of that, it is so cool to see that Deanna sued this company and won. Like, it really goes to show you, if you're gonna fire somebody, it's gotta be for legitimate reasons, and not just because you don't like them or don't like the fact that they have a friend at work that isn't you. Like, what a petty and weird reason to make someone leave their job. So good for Deanna for not only taking all that vacation time off, but also for getting back at this awful workplace. Because you know what? These people sound absolutely awful, and neither she nor the original poster deserve to go through all that turmoil. My daughter secretly withdrew $10,000 from her college account just so she could go on vacation and visit a celebrity. And now, because of her decision, I'm considering closing that college account completely, thus denying her the opportunity to even go to college. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my daughter is 17 and applying for colleges. We have a college fund saved up for her that we've been adding to since she was an infant. It's a good sizable chunk of money, and a lot of donations from family have gone into it, as well as her own savings occasionally. We have always made it clear that the money is there for college only. She never had to put her savings in there, but she did so anyways. Now, her girlfriend lives in Australia, and they are both insanely big Supernatural fans. They have both wanted to go to a convention for years, at least 5 that I can remember. 2 of the main guys are going to be at a convention in Australia. She begged me to let her go, but I said no. But also, the convention is set for after the 18th. I told her that I can't stop her if she pays for it herself, and I honestly assumed that she would use her savings, but boy was I wrong. I checked the college account to add some money in there, and I noticed a huge chunk of money was missing. I went to speak to my daughter about it, and she admitted to using the money to pay for the convention. She bought herself plane tickets, her girlfriend plane tickets, as well as both of their convention tickets and the booking of a hotel. The convention is 3 or 4 days, but she's planning on staying for a couple of weeks, thus making it a complete vacation. All in all, she literally took out $10,000. Now, at this point, honestly, I lost it. I demanded that she cancel the trip, but that fell on deaf ears. I tried to cancel for her, but she would not be refunded for everything, so I'm hesitant to do so. She's insisting that it's her money and she can do what she likes with it. She claims that she still has enough for college, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Now, I believe this has shown her extreme immaturity and inability to manage her future and her money. I am so incredibly angry that she would go and do this behind my back. So I told her that she can say goodbye to the rest of her college fund, and I have now locked the account. Currently, I'm the only person with access, and she says that she'll pay it back, but honestly, it really seems unlikely. My wife thinks I'm being harsh and that she's right. My daughter did put about $5,000 into the account herself, so she only took out about $5,000, which my mother-in-law has since said that she'll pay back. But I think that this just teaches her that she can pay her way out of any kind of mess. Now, I was certain in my decision, but everyone is acting like I'm the jerk. She's a teenage girl, and her entire life shouldn't revolve around college. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? First of all, I want to say that I completely understand where you're coming from. This college fund was just for that. It was so that she could go to college. And it's not like she didn't know that ahead of time. I mean, she herself has put a lot of money into this account already. So the fact that she would go behind your back and take money out just to go on this stupid trip to Australia, all without talking to you ahead of time and at the expense of her college account, makes this entire situation so uncalled for. And I do completely agree with the original poster here. This was a completely irrational decision, and this really does not look good in terms of her managing her future money. But with that all in mind, with all the mistakes that the daughter absolutely made, I really think it would be a bad idea to deny her that money just so she can get to college. That money was set aside specifically for that. Just because she took money out doesn't mean that she can't learn from her mistake and do better in the future. I do think it's smart that you locked it down. This way she can never try and take money out of it ever again, and you can now set up some kind of payment plan so she can pay back the $5,000 that she owes to this account. And I think you definitely need to set up some checks and balances to make sure that she can't withdraw any other funds in the first place up until college. So yes, she is absolutely in the wrong for doing what she did, but I personally think it would be a bad idea to act really irrational right now. I think that it would be an awful decision to suddenly say, okay, now you can't go to college. That will honestly not serve your daughter well, and that is only going to do more harm than it will do good. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My sisters treat me like garbage, all because I only got married for money. And now, because of an argument and some of the awful things they've said about me, I decided to back out of a family vacation, thus forcing it to be canceled altogether. And now I'm being called a jerk, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, let me start this off by saying that I'm married for money. My husband is with me for appearances, and we are happy with our arrangement. My husband and I married because I have all the qualifications to please his family, and he takes financial care of me. We are very fond of each other and even love each other, but not in the classical marriage sense. We are like amazing roommates with some benefits. He and I are free to live our lives independently and without any kind of stress. He is not worried about being cut off from his family, and I am finally financially stable and am free to work my job that simply is not as economically beneficial. But here's where the problem comes in. My sisters have never approved of my decision. They say I sold myself, which I mean is kind of fair, but still, we used to be civil with each other. Last week we had a family barbecue and I went without my husband. Everything was going great until my oldest niece, who's about 21, sat down next to me and we started talking. And then she asked me a question straight up. She wanted to know if I was with my husband for money. I explained to her how we met, as well as our agreement and so on. She then asked me if I think it would be okay for her to pretend to be her gay best friend's girlfriend. I told her it was up to her to decide, and if there were no negatives to it, like her having actual feelings for him, or someone getting hurt like a romantic partner or something like that. Overall, it was a lovely talk. Well, strike two of the situation was apparently when my other nieces asked me where my husband was and I told them. I said that he was on vacation. They asked me why I didn't go with him, and I said that we only sometimes go together on vacations. We usually take little trips together, but go on longer vacations with friends or family. This niece, who's 16, asked me if it was true about what her mom and aunt said about me being a gold digger, and I just said, well, I guess so. Like, honestly, that just doesn't faze me anymore. I know my sisters constantly talk about me behind my back, and I am not ashamed about my marriage at all, so I see no need to lie. Later that night, my sisters cornered me, and we had a fight about my words and my nieces. They said it was completely inappropriate about what I told them. They said that I'm free to mess up my life, but that I shouldn't let my nieces think that it's okay to do what I did. I called them small-minded, and that I was only answering my nieces' questions, and I was even honest with them. They are free to make their own decisions after all. My sisters kept cornering me, calling me all sorts of names and saying I'm basically influencing their daughters in a negative way, all because I'm apparently miserable. I then made some comments right back at them, and then I left, not talking to them for the whole week. Now there's a huge fallout because I pulled out of the family vacation because of this fight. And here's the kicker. The vacation would have been at my husband's summer house. And as I'm not going, my husband doesn't feel comfortable lending my family the house. My family has now been calling me a massive jerk, and my sister said that I was blowing things out of proportion. So honestly, am I the jerk for getting the family vacation canceled? What should I do? This honestly is a crazy scenario. It's really weird to hear that somebody would be like, yeah, I married my husband for money, and then the husband to make some kind of similar statement, basically claiming that his wife is just a good cover so his family won't reject him. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody actually saying that out loud, so this honestly really did surprise me. But with all things considered, this is your life. You can do whatever you want, and if that means you marry someone all because you want to be financially stable, then I mean, I guess you can go ahead and do that. I mean, clearly it's working for you. I personally can't imagine living that kind of life moving forward, but hey, that's just me. But when it comes to the way your family treats you, I don't think they're being completely fair. It sounds like you try your best to be honest with those around you, and you are completely upfront about your life and why you married the man that you did. And with that in mind, it's honestly really unfortunate that your sisters feel the need to try and gang up on you. That's really unfortunate, and honestly, it kind of seems like it's a bunch of sour grapes. Like they're just mad because your husband is rich. That's honestly all I'm seeing here. And with that in mind, I honestly don't blame you for cutting contact for an entire week. They've been treating you like garbage. They're not respecting your boundaries, and they're completely getting bent out of shape over the dumbest things. But with that in mind, their actions absolutely deserve to have consequences. They said horrible things about you. So the fact that they would really get upset because they can't use your husband's summer home for some kind of vacation anymore is honestly comical. They're basically saying, oh, you're just gonna have to deal with the things we say about you, but also guess what? We get to use your husband's summer house. Thanks. Like, no, that is not what's gonna happen here. What's gonna happen is because you offended the original poster, they're gonna back out of the family trip because why would they show up? Just to get yelled at by their sisters again? That seriously doesn't sound like a good time, and it's not something I would want to deal with in the slightest. So in my opinion, with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you had every right to stand up for yourself yourself, as well as backing out of that vacation. Because if they really wanted to use your husband's summer house, then they should have treated you better. 5 entitled Karens try to block my view while my wife and I were on a Royal Caribbean vacation, but I decided I wasn't taking that sitting down. So as a result, I had them removed from the location, and I've never felt better about getting back at some entitled Karens in my life. Here's what happened. So I just got back from a 3-day cruise that only went to Royal Caribbean's private island. The island is called Coco Cay, which they now refer to as Perfect Day. They have pools, a ton of water slides, little beach coves, and a lot of other things. Knowing that we just wanted to enjoy the beach, several months before the cruise departed, we booked a day bed as they were more reasonable than the cabanas and offered almost just as much for the money. The day beds can be reserved, and depending on when you reserve them, you're going to be able to get a better location. Each day bed comes with 2 lounge chairs and an umbrella that is directly in front of the day bed. They are located adjacent to a large section of lounge chairs and umbrellas that are available on a first-come, first-served basis. If you get off the ship right when you're first able to at about 8 o'clock, then you are likely going to get a better location. All the chairs and day beds are aligned in nice, neat rows and are meant to stay where they are. We got off the ship about 15 minutes after 8 o'clock, and we were pleasantly surprised when we arrived to our designated section of the island. It had been so long since I reserved the day bed that I had forgotten that we had gotten one of the first rows, thus ensuring unobstructed views of the beautiful Caribbean waters. At this time, this little enclave was sparsely populated, and we were one of the only few groups of people there. The front row of the lounge chairs had already started to fill up though. An hour or so goes by, and we're hanging out in the water when I see 2 older women pull their designated lounge chairs down from the 3rd row of the daybed section right in front of the 1st row of the daybeds. I'm immediately asking myself where in the world these ladies get off thinking that this is somehow okay. And then I thought back to what I've read on the internet, and right here on full display, I'm seeing some entitled Karens in the wild. Within 15 minutes or so, it seems like their actions have given the same idea to an even older group of 3 women who pull their chairs from the large section of first come first served lounges and pull up next to the first 2 ladies, now obstructing the views of nearly the entire first row of daybeds. All 5 of these women had a very northeastern part of the US way about them between their distinctive look and their accents, and honestly that was way more than what I was willing to tolerate. I paid for and planned enough in advance to have a first row view, and I wasn't about to let these entitled jerks insert themselves into that picture. Thankfully, the daybeds have a concierge who is there to assist with these matters and was incredibly helpful in ensuring that the laws of this society were being upheld. Now, of course, these women were all completely shocked that anyone would have an issue with what they did, and they refused to go take their chairs back to where they dragged them from. I guess because they were such a high degree of Karen, they got the concierge to allow them to obstruct the views of the people in the first row of lounge chairs who had gotten there early to ensure unimpeded views. They then proceeded to yell all around us about how they hoped that whoever it was that complained was just so happy to have their views back. And since they said that, you know what? Yes, I am very happy that they're out of the way. I did feel bad for the people in the first row of lounge chairs who then had the unfortunate result of having these jerks in between them and the Caribbean. My wife asked me why I couldn't just let it go, and I explained it to her like this. Look, if I bought first row seats to a football game and then someone else who bought standing row only seats came and stood in the aisles in front of my seats, I'd want them to move to the section designated for standing room only tickets. And honestly, I feel the exact same way when it comes to these entitled Karens. Wow, that is really unfortunate. First of all, the concierge absolutely should have made them move those chairs back. Whoever it is that allowed that is a complete pushover, and they seriously need to be trained better. Like, these Karens and their actions were completely unfair. They're blocking the view of people who actually took the time to reserve their spots, and then they have the audacity to act like, oh wow, I can't believe you did this to me. I hope you're happy now. Like, seriously, a lot of people paid a lot of money just to be here, let alone to try and reserve a spot on this beach. Like, that was probably a lot of money just to go and enjoy this trip. So in my opinion, I would have done the exact same thing. If someone was obstructing my view and causing me to have a negative experience, then I absolutely would want that taken care of. An awful student keeps trying to push the boundaries of what I will and will not allow inside of my classroom. So I decided to get some revenge after his latest stunt, essentially marking him as psychologically distressed, forcing him to meet with a school psychologist. Here's what happened. So I'm a high school teacher, and I taught, among other subjects, politics at my previous school. We were briefed over and over again to be on the lookout for any sign that a student might be in psychological distress. While I do understand that it is a part of my job, I was always shaking my head in disbelief, especially when we were given the list of possible symptoms. It was stuff like mood swings, irritability, lack of interest in school, underperformance and changes in interests, etc. Since I work with teenagers, that list applies to about 90% of them, so obviously that list wasn't any help. At the same time, I had a very provocative student who was 2 grades behind and who was also smug as you could possibly be. He would always spend an unnerving amount of his potential trying to push his teacher's boundaries and see how far he could go. Luckily though, I'm not that easy to anger and always try not to play into this student's hand by doing exactly what they want me to do. So if I notice that somebody tries to anger me, I give my best to speak even more calmly. When I was grading a test in politics, I noticed that he had not filled out a question, probably because he was once more oblivious to the answer. Instead, he had used his time during the test to draw a little sketch made of stick figures. One stick figure, labeled as me, had its hand on a lever up on the risen platform with a gallows. The stick figure with the head in the noose was labeled with his own name. At the feet of the gallows, the rest of the class was protesting, with signs that said stop or don't do it. I thought about what comment I might write next to it. That is, until I remember the training we were given over and over again. Obviously, this student was in distress, so I contacted the school psychologist and mentioned the disquieting sketch on the test. 2 days later, during my lesson, there was a knock on my door, and it was indeed the school counselor who came to get the student in question for psychological assessment. And trust me when I say this, the sour look this student gave me when he came back was honestly marvelous. That is a really funny way to get revenge on a bad student. This student sounds like somebody who easily could do more with their life if they really wanted to, and they could probably catch up in grades and probably graduate on time, but instead they spend all their time trying to push boundaries and act like a complete moron. And I'm willing to bet that this was probably the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, I'm sure the original poster dealt with this student for a long time. They probably had daily encounters with this person, and they were constantly having to navigate their awful behavior. So hopefully this sends a clear message that no, they can't do that anymore. Otherwise, they're only going to find themselves in the counselor's office again. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for refusing to lend money to my friend after her terrible history of spending money that she blatantly doesn't have? Here's what happened. So first of all, I need your help settling a debate between me and my friend. Here's the situation. My friend, let's call her Sarah, that's not her real name, recently asked me to lend her a significant amount of money. Now, before jumping to conclusions, let me first provide some context. Sarah and I have been friends for years, and we've always supported each other through thick and thin. However, over the past few months, Sarah has been making some questionable financial decisions. She's been splurging on unnecessary luxury items and going on extravagant vacations without any regard for her mounting debts. When Sarah approached me for a loan, I was taken aback by the audacity of her request. I mean, it's not like she needed the money for an emergency or something like that, and it wasn't anything urgent. She simply wanted it to fund another lavish vacation. As someone who values financial responsibility and saving for the future, I couldn't bring myself to support such reckless behavior. I politely declined her request and explained my reasons behind it. I told her that lending money would only enable her irresponsible spending habits and that it wouldn't be fair to me or our friendship in the long run. Instead, I suggested that she should focus on managing her existing debts and reevaluating her spending habits. However, Sarah did not take my refusal well at all. She accused me of being selfish and unsupportive during a time when she needed help the most. She argued that as a good friend, I should be willing to lend a helping hand regardless of the circumstances. Now, here's where things get really tricky. Some mutual friends have taken Sarah's side in this argument. They believe that since we've always been there for each other in times of need before, I should extend my support this time as well. But am I really being selfish here? Shouldn't friendship also involve holding each other accountable for our actions? It feels unfair that just because we've helped each other in the past somehow means that we're obligated to do so indefinitely without considering the consequences. I genuinely care about Sarah's well-being, and I do want what's best for her in the long run, but enabling her reckless spending habits doesn't seem like the right way to go about doing this. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, in my opinion, it really seems like Sarah is just trying to use you for money. Like, instead of saving up and trying to have some kind of vacation on her own dime, she wants to go to you and be like, hey, give me some money. pay. And if you don't, guess what? I'm gonna try and guilt trip you. That's all I'm hearing right now. Her, as well as your friends, are just trying to guilt trip you into paying for Sarah's vacation. And you know what? The things that your friends said are absolute garbage. Sarah is not in any kind of need right now. Anyone who claims that she is completely delusional. She isn't desperate for money because she's afraid she's gonna get evicted or anything like that. She's not on the verge of financial ruin. She just wants to go on a lavish vacation. And she thought to herself, okay, maybe I can ask the original poster to give me some money. That way I can have the vacation that I want. And honestly, that's exactly what I think is happening. She spends her money needlessly, and then she comes to you to be like, hey, can you bail me out? And that, in my opinion, is super toxic and so uncalled for. So no, you are not the jerk in this situation. Your friend is incredibly selfish, and all your other friends are completely delusional. Because I know for a fact that if I was in your situation, I would have also told Sarah that there's no way I'm giving her any money. An entitled Karen constantly calls into my place of business just to insult us whenever she has to make a payment on her account. And after dealing with this for so many months, I finally had enough, deciding to fight fire with fire and show this Karen exactly how toxic she truly is. Here's what happened. I used to work customer service for an insurance brokerage, and now I manage a customer service team, and I am in charge of client retention as well. So I don't receive calls anymore and only make a few, but this specific client is honestly one of the worst. It's one where I always have to call her back after one of her little tantrums. So this entitled Karen has made it very clear from the first interaction that I had with her almost 2 years ago that she's very unhappy with our service as well as our fees. Which, by the way, she knew about all of our fees and services available ever since she signed the dotted line. And trust me, she had so much she had to read. She always calls us to make her payments. She always complains about the fee. We always let her know she can call the carrier directly or set up an auto pay to avoid these fees. And her response every time is to say the following: "Why on earth would I do that if you're supposed to be my agent? I don't need to be doing that." So whenever I have to call her, I would just let her vent and curse for a while, and then in my calmest customer service voice, I would say to her, "Okay, whenever you're ready, you can give me the card number." She always says that when she opened her policy with us, the one agent who sold it to her would explain all of her renewals for her at the office. But now that ever since he started working from home, it's just been an issue left and right. I've always asked him about this entitled Karen, since she'd call back saying that she wanted to cancel her policy. You know, to see if he would give her a call to re-quote her with a different carrier, as well as to find out if he could find anything cheaper for her. He just saw the name and said, "No, I know who that is. She's always like that, and I've re-quoted her several times. There is literally no other carriers for her. She's insulted virtually everyone in the agency and has been the first person to earn the title of rude client pinned straight to her file. She calls and insults whoever gets the call, and on the next one complains and lies about how she was treated by the last person. We keep recordings of all of our calls, so I know for a fact that she is lying. We also have a 5-star rating on Google as well as our Yelp reviews. Most of our new business is from referrals, so she's really the only one who has a problem with us. Well, the other day, the entitled Karen called, but the person who took her call was having technical difficulties. He couldn't hear her much and wasn't sure if she could hear him as well. So he repeated a few times, "Ma'am, I don't know if you can hear me, but I cannot hear you. I'm gonna hang up the call now and call you back." And then he hung up the call. And honestly, this is where things really started to pop off. So after he hung up the phone, he got a call as soon as he did, and he had to pick it up. And when he was done with that, the entitled Karen in question was already calling again. He picked up the phone and immediately she was just insulting him, not letting him speak and not even saying what she needed help with. Then she hung up the phone on him. This representative, let's call him James, that's not his real name, called me immediately to explain what had just happened and test his line at the same time. It was indeed having some issues, so he ended up having to reboot his router and computer. So I called this Karen back, since she was clearly upset, and well, I mean, I had to do my job with client retention, right? When she picked up and I said my name, she immediately started cussing while also saying no one ever treated her so badly as James just did. She said she already knew who I was since we've spoken several times before, and that she wanted corporate to do something about James. She said to me, "James should be fired. You need to be more careful about who you have working for you." I tried to explain to her the situation at hand and that he was indeed having issues with his line, but she said that it was a lie and that he acted as if he was doing me a favor by taking my call when it's actually his job. job. I then told her that I had personally listened to the call recording, that we take complaints very seriously, and so on and so on. But she said that she didn't care. She stated that she knew this was being recorded and then proceeded to say as many curse words as she could think of, as if she was going off of a list. She then said she wanted corporate to hear that because she was so angry. Then this woman did something that honestly stunned me. I mean, she seriously had no shame. She told me that she was customer service before and now quality control, so she could tell when someone was being unprofessional. But I mean, this lady is clearly out of line. Like, I have quite literally gotten emails from her business email insulting me in the process, with her automatic signature set up to say, "Respectfully, Karen, customer relations." Like, how is that professional? To use your company email like that, and the signature with the actual body of the emails is honestly hilarious. These emails that she sent to me, by the way, in the past, I always get them after she makes a payment with us. She complains that we didn't send her the receipts when I can literally see they are attached to the email that we sent her. I just resend them and I say to her, "You can find both the carrier receipt and the service fee receipt attached on the previous email, but I have also attached them here for your convenience." Anyways, after all of this, I spoke with the owner. She listened to my calls and James and said that she'd send Karen an email with the recordings so she can hear herself being so rude. Well, ever since then, we haven't heard back from her in a while, but I'm sure this Karen will come out of hiding and this saga will absolutely continue. That Karen is absolutely obnoxious. Who calls in just to start insulting people instead of setting up, I don't know, autopay of some kind? Like, seriously, she wants to sit there and go through some kind of call center just to make her payment every month for whatever service she has? Like, that lady must be really bored, or she's clearly looking for trouble. This must clearly be her only chance to get out all of her frustrations in life, because this behavior is so unbelievable. So in my opinion, good for the original poster and the way that they handled this. They really did stay calm in the face of an awful storm. And hopefully, for the sake of you and all of your coworkers, you never have to deal with this Karen ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled bosses treat me like garbage and refuse to pay me after I say that I'm leaving to go to another company. So I decided to get some revenge, and as a result, I make their life a living nightmare even after I left the company. Here's what happened. So I was an in-house lawyer for a multinational company that sold software. I specifically joined this relatively lesser-known company to learn more about compliance. The stock was listed on the stock exchange, meaning more compliance work that needed to be done. And I highlighted this specifically as one of the reasons for my seeking out a change. But I quickly discovered that it was filled with senior citizens when I joined. Basically, it was a company full of old-timers who are there purely because they're close to the company's owners. As part of the onboarding experience, I had to sit through sermons of how they changed the industry and how they know this, that, or the other. This meant I had 3 different bosses. One senior guy who was the fixer, I'll call him senior number 1 for convenience, and no one really knew what he did, but he got a cabin to himself. Another was an ex-senior management guy who got a gig from the owner to negotiate tech contracts. This will be senior guy number 2. I highlight this because this ex-senior management guy actually asked me what an EULA was, and an EULA stands for End User License Agreement. Another guy was my reporting manager, with whom I was expecting to work on a day-to-day basis with, and this is senior guy number 3. So anyways, 1 month after joining, I was told that the company was going private through a sale to another entity, and honestly, I was shocked, but I had loans to pay, so I continued working there. For some reason, I was senior enough for them to handle this independently. This meant that I worked through the night to complete tasks that a law firm would ordinarily do. I also worked on the definitive agreement that was in use for the company to be sold. And trust me, this will be important later on. By the 3rd month, I had decided the role wasn't what was advertised, and I was essentially cheap labor. The buyers were from another city and planned to have their office there. Now, I was not keen on moving, so I basically read between the lines and I started lining up interviews. Well, things went south very quickly. The old-timers were unhappy that I was looking for a job because that would mean they have to answer to the owners, or even worse, they would then have to do the job themselves. And once they started to persecute me a lot more, it really solidified my resolve to leave this company. All of my complaints about senior guy number 1 and 2, all to senior guy number 3, were met with typical management talk. He sympathized and bad-mouthed them for burdening the company that he tolerates only because they are closer to the owner. Senior guy number 2 even started countering all of my remarks remarks and comments, and these were all drafted up in an email. I mean, even minor agreement points required discussions, but if it was his mistake, then we had a call. However, if senior guy number 2 raised the point, it suddenly made commercial sense. This wasn't my first rodeo, and I really didn't care about proving a point because I want it out as soon as possible. Any pushback or fights are just going to be left on deaf ears, because from where I am, labor laws are, at best, recommendations unless you're unionized. The only option really is to leave. I was so angry and tired of being pushed over, but I wondered if it was just me angry at the whole situation and finding faults. But I had an opportunity to test my theory. So in one of the contracts that we were drafting, I made some comments and sent them over to senior guy number 2. As expected, he countered with verbal suggestions on the phone, which didn't make any sense, obviously. But however, because he is senior, I had to do the song and dance to explain the points. So I arranged the call, explained to him, and documented this on email, attributing each verbal recommendation, as well as the time of the call and the decision suggested by him. Then I sent this back to him for approval. However, this time I also sent that email to my boss, who's senior guy number 3, and asked for his approval on recommendations. Surprisingly, this practice was entirely new to them. Both of them were incredibly angry with me. Senior guy number 2 and 3 were not happy. Senior guy 2 was being questioned for the first time in email, and senior guy number 3 couldn't ignore my email as the head of my department. Unsurprisingly, I got a single line non-answer from senior guy number 3, basically asking me to discuss this with senior guy number 2, followed by a verbally heated instruction to just do what senior guy number 2 wants and not bother him. Now, I was sure that this wasn't going to work for me in the short term or in the long term, so I resigned and gave my notice period of 1 month. Senior guy number 3 was really mad because he thought the notice period was for 3 months and the sale of company was expected to close in 1 to 2 months. And then, as you would expect from any toxic work environment, especially right after you decide to resign, I was treated like absolute garbage for the entire month that I was still there. On the last working day, I walked up to senior guy number 3's cabin and did the courteous communication of simply saying thank you. He basically told me that I'm picking a huge fight and he will make sure that I never get employed in the industry ever again. He also told me that he is not going to pay me my full and final settlement of dues and a relieving letter, which, by the way, from where I'm from in India, that is a huge deal to get for your next job. Employers hold off on these as blackmail for troublesome employees. His tone implied that there is very little I could do because they were all senior guys and they've apparently been there and done that. I mean, I wasn't the first disgruntled employee for him. So I said my goodbyes, I got the IT department to confirm that I had returned the company assets, and I forwarded my personal email. However, I was furious as well at the whole ordeal and had made up my mind not to show this on my resume. And it's honestly right about here that my revenge really started to take place. For starters, once I left, I spoke with my friend and decided to serve a legal notice, detailing the ordeal and all the treatment sent towards me. Ordinarily, the legal notice barely makes a difference as the management is usually thick-skinned about it. However, the legal notice was also sent to the owners, not just the company. This wasn't really required, but I did it anyways. It turns out many directors were absolutely angry at senior guys number 1, 2, and 3, but they decided to remain quiet about it, just trying to wait and sell this company out. My act of involving the owners meant the entire board got involved, including outside directors. This turned into a festival of explanations by all 3 in front of the owners. From what I hear, they all had to personally take leave to meet the owners themselves and explain themselves as naughty children in front of their parents. Needless to say, everyone in the company was talking about that incident. I waited for 1 month to see if the notice had any effect aside from them being chewed out like children. Expectedly, I got no response, but I knew from the grapevine that they now had to spend money on a law firm to reply to me because shareholders were aware of this information. I had made my point by now, but I wanted more. I really didn't want to drag it because I was also looking for jobs and I had loans to pay. However, their template management response basically implied that since I had left without notice, they were evaluating all options, including considering me AWOL. Senior guy number 2 basically said to me that he will not pay me my dues or my relieving letter, and implied that there is very little that I can do about it. So, being the petty person that I am, I made plans to get both. Now, since I had access to the definitive agreement and remembered huge details about it, having worked with law firms through the agreement in detail, I was also aware of who stays and goes, and I made sure to speak to those who were being being let go. And because of my involvement, this caused mass resignations in the company, with several deadlines being missed. I also knew the specific approvals that would trigger because of the transaction. So I spoke to the authority who would approve this transaction as a disgruntled employee. The authority made their own inquiries. The owners got spooked, and it was definitely not serious enough to scare them into thinking that the deal won't get approved, but the mere fact that a government authority was calling them meant that they now had to deal with the authority, which also would have never happened if it wasn't for me. Now, as a result, the buyer used this as a low-value bargaining chip, citing bad employee experience and resignation of several key members on key projects. And also, because I was calling around and basically getting the authorities on them, I got my dues and relieving letter all within 48 hours of doing that. The company got gossip for years on how the management was dumb enough to mess with the lawyer, including a sermon from the owners on how we shouldn't upset employees when they are trying to sell the company. Senior guy number 1 and 2 were left red-faced but ended up surviving because of old ties. However, their contracts were not renewed. But honestly, it felt so nice to get revenge and throw these scumbags right under the bus. That is honestly a great way to get back at these people. I mean, after all the work that you did for that company and all the things that you tried to do, despite the fact that these guys were being really lazy and just didn't want to do their job, with all of that in consideration, they seriously were going to be like, oh, we're not going to pay you. Also, we're not going to give you a good letter. See you later. Like, that is messed up. And I know if I was in that situation, I wouldn't know what to do. But thankfully, this original poster is a lawyer. They are not someone you want to mess with. And honestly, these senior guys bit off more than they could chew. Now, the original poster does go on to say that the revenge he got is pretty tame in comparison to what you might read online. But trust me, these guys were sweating. The second you started complaining, all of their sins were brought to light and they had nowhere to hide. That, in my opinion, is the best way to get back at people like this. You hold their feet to the fire and you hit them where it hurts. And that's exactly what you did. You brought all of their horrible treatment and all of their threats right to the light, and you made them explain themselves to the owner and the outside directors. Not to mention the fact that they had to go to the shareholders just to explain why they were acting the way that they were. I can only imagine how embarrassed they probably were, and honestly, with all things considered, they completely deserved it. Like, they were not going to pay you for your time at that company. They were also not going to give you a good letter moving forward to your new company. That is such a scumbag thing to do, and people like that absolutely should be put in their place. So you know what? Good for you for getting that kind of revenge. These guys absolutely had it coming, and I really think that if you decided to stay quiet, then they would probably never get punished for the things that they did. Am I the jerk for lending money to a friend all without asking my wife first? Here's what happened. Okay, so we've been married for 5 years and we have a son who's 4 years old and a daughter who's 2 years old. We currently live in a very nice place. I bought this house from my uncle before we started dating, and my parents paid for most of it. We are close to virtually everything important, like 2 multi-specialist hospitals and schools, some colleges, malls, theaters, and subways, which are literally a maximum of 15 minutes away from our house. So as you can see from my description, we don't need a new house. But my wife thinks the problem is that there are too many old people here. My wife told me that she feels old here because there are so many old people living around us. Most of the people here are rich 40 to 50-year-old couples who have retired to find some peace. For reference, I'm 33 years old and my wife is 29. Now, I don't mind because when I first shifted here, our neighbors literally treated me like their son. So I really don't want to leave this place. 2 years after our marriage, my wife insisted I buy a new house. Now, I refused because her idea was to sell this house and buy a new one. But I told her that I wasn't going to sell this place at any cost. She must have seen how firm I was and didn't want to bring up the subject again. But after our daughter was born, she said we should at least save some money for the future, with her primary idea being that we would move to the center of the city. And it's right then that I realized that she didn't move on from wanting a new house. But it's not bad to save money, so I agreed. Now, it is worth noting to her that we both work, but my salary is a little more than double hers, so I made major contributions to that savings. Anyways, a couple of days ago, my friend asked me for some money. I didn't have that much on me, so I lent him from our savings. I then told my wife as soon as I got home, and she got so angry and asked me why I lent him money from the savings. I told her the reason, but she was still so angry. She said to me, "How can I trust someone blindly if he doesn't return the money?" I said that I knew him way longer than her. I mean, we literally went to school together, and his entire family, even his cousins, knew me as well. She then said to me, "Well, well, why didn't you ask me first? I said that it wouldn't have made a difference because I contributed the most, and we are not in need of a new house immediately, so I would have lent him the money either way. She then started crying and went into our room, and now she has not talked to me since. Now, I know I might have said some rude things, but honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk for lending out money from our savings to my friend, all without asking my wife? What should I do? Yeah, that's a really messed up thing to do. First and foremost, I absolutely think that you are the jerk in this situation. You took money that belongs to both you and your wife, and you gave it to your friend under the assumption that he would pay you back. You literally took money away from your wife and any hope of her finding another place to live. And here's the thing, your wife's opinion absolutely matters. If she doesn't want to live there, then maybe you should try and get off your high horse and try and see where she's coming from here. Like, she's clearly unhappy, and that money meant a lot to her in terms of, I don't know, saving up to get another house. But also beyond all of that, beyond her not wanting to live where she's at or anything like that, honestly, the fact that you did this without talking to her is so toxic. There is no good excuse for this. That is money that's meant for the both of you, and in my opinion, you absolutely should have talked to her first. Like, seriously, think about it. How would you feel if she took all of that money and decided to send it off to somebody else that you didn't know? Like, I'm pretty sure you would be angry and questioning pretty much everything going on. So I really don't think you should be surprised why your wife is getting upset about this. So yes, I think you're the jerk here, and you really need to make this right. Either set up some kind of like high payment plan with this friend, or try and go back on this deal and be like, sorry, I need the money back. Because making this decision with that money without talking to her first is honestly really toxic, and there's no excuse for the way you acted. An entitled brat gets me in trouble with corporate at the store I work with, all because I said PlayStation is better than Nintendo, and I'm honestly blown away that I got written up in the first place for a childish argument such as this. Here's what happened. So back in 2007, I was 23 at the time, and I worked for a large video game chain. Now, this was shortly after the Nintendo Wii came out, and we were always sold out of the product. Every single morning, we would have a line of customers that would wait around for our daily deliveries to see if we had any new Wiis coming in. So one evening, I was working a fairly slow shift, and these two kids came in and started chatting with my coworker and I. Both of them were probably about 14 years old and came around pretty frequently. One of the kids started talking about how great and wonderful the Nintendo Wii was. He started asking for my opinion, and I simply told him that it was a good console, but that I was not a fan of the idea of motion controls and didn't want to get one for myself. I then went on to say that I was more of a fan of PlayStation myself. He then started to lose his mind over this. Well, I should say that he pretended to lose his mind over this. I mean, come on, you could tell he wasn't really upset that I didn't like the Wii, and that he just wanted to mess around with me. He started to demand that I say the Wii was the greatest, and that there was no other better console. To be honest, it was getting a bit much, so I just stood my ground and continued to say that the Wii was not something that I liked. Now, at this point, the kid actually started getting really frustrated because I would not say what he wanted me to say. And at this point, I think he was starting to get upset for real this time, instead of just messing with me from before. He then pulled out the manager card. He told me that he knew the district manager, and that if I did not say that the Wii was the best console out there, that he would then report me to the district manager. Now, anyone that works in retail has probably heard that line before, so I just brushed it off and kept my position. The kid and his friend eventually stomped off, and I thought that was the end of it, but boy was I wrong. I come to find out that this kid actually did know the district manager. He ended up going to the district manager and came up with some lie about how I was extremely rude and an overall jerk to him specifically. Well, as a result, the district manager immediately wrote me up about it. She did not talk to my store manager or my coworker who was there that night before putting in the paperwork. After writing me up, the district manager called my store manager to go over the write-up. Needless to say, my store manager was shocked. She immediately defended me, saying that there is no way that I would treat a customer that way. The district manager at this point realizes that she may have been a little rash in her decision to write me up, and asked the store manager to investigate the event. So my coworker and I arrived that afternoon and sat down with the store manager themselves. She tells me that I've been written up because I was so rude to some kid earlier in the week. I tell her my side of the story, and my coworker tells her what he saw as well. My store manager went back to the district manager, told my side of the story, as well as my coworker's version. The district manager ended up going back to the kid and finally figured out that he had lied to her. The next time that I had to work, I got a face-to-face visit from the district manager. She starts apologizing to me for writing me up without even looking into the event
event in question, but she told me that she cannot undo the write-up, that once the paperwork goes through, that it cannot be undone. I always wondered if she could have reversed the write-up, but said that she couldn't in order to save her own skin. As for the kid, he was forced to give me an apology. The store manager then gave me the option on whether he would be banned from the store or not. I was even given the option to permanently ban him, but I didn't want him bitter over a stupid mistake. I ended up making the ban for something like 3 months or something along those lines. I never did see that kid after he got banned, even after the ban had lifted, and I kinda wonder if he was too embarrassed to show up while I worked there. But you know what? Nowadays, I actually prefer Nintendo over PlayStation, but I am still not a big fan of the Nintendo Wii. Wow, I can't believe someone tried to get you in trouble, all because you said, no, I don't like Nintendo, and I prefer PlayStation overall. Like seriously, imagine going to work and getting written up by the district manager, all because you express your opinion, and then this stupid brat gets you in trouble by making up some awful lie about the way you treated them. Like you didn't treat them like garbage. In fact, you didn't even do anything at all. All you did was refuse to say exactly what that kid wanted you to say, and that clearly angered him enough so that he would try and get the district manager on you. And honestly, I think you could have gone above the district manager if you really wanted that paperwork reversed. I'm pretty sure that they were just being super lazy about it, and they didn't want to admit their mess up to corporate, who absolutely would have dropped the hammer on them specifically. And when it comes to that kid getting banned, honestly, if I was in your shoes, I probably would have been a bit more severe than a 3-month ban. This kid probably thought he could do whatever he wanted at these stores, all because he knew the district manager. He knew that he always had that option in his back pocket, so that any awful behavior he would exhibit at these stores could then be excused by throwing out the name of the district manager, as if that's going to protect them from getting some kind of punishment. So honestly, good for you for banning that kid for 3 months. That little brat was completely out of line, and he absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for supposedly publicly shaming my sister-in-law after she makes a big deal about how awful she looked at my wedding? Here's what happened. So I got married to my husband this past July. Our wedding theme was fairy court. We only invited close family and friends and requested that they wear jewelry-toned dresses and suit jackets. The wedding was in a sort of a forest. We also took photos with everyone, not just the wedding party itself, which only consisted of a best man and a maid of honor. Well, my sister-in-law, who's in her mid-20s, shows up in a blush pink dress and her boyfriend in a cream suit jacket. She thought that this would make her pop, I guess. I mean, she is an attention seeker, by testimony of everyone except for her mom. But honestly, the joke was on her. My dress was gold and shimmery, and my husband was in an emerald green jacket. Also, I was wearing a full-on crown, so there was no mistaking who the bride was. When the photographer asked me if she should Photoshop them a bit, just to make them blend in more, since we went with a dramatic photo style that emphasized the deep jewelry tones and the darkness of the forest, I ended up telling her not to bother. Just make them look nice, but don't change the colors or anything like that. Well, I received the photos 4 days ago, and I posted them on Instagram, with most of them ending up on Facebook, since most of our older relatives still use it exclusively. And honestly, my sister-in-law and her boyfriend looked completely out of place, and they were almost washed out entirely. Well, she then had the nerve to comment on my post, and it was very passive-aggressive, something along the lines of washing her out to make herself stand out more. But I responded by saying that she washed herself out by literally ignoring the wedding themes. She then eventually deleted her comment. But then we met last night at my in-laws, and it was an accident, not planned or anything like that. She said pretty much the same thing, so I repeated that she was washed out because the photo style that we chose emphasized deep colors. That's why we asked people to wear what they wore. Things escalated from there, and it ended up with me telling her that she looked like absolute garbage in our photos, and that she was just a jealous little woman who thought she could upstage me with a $30 dress the color of diluted Pepto-Bismol. She then started crying and eventually left. Now my mother-in-law says that I owe my sister-in-law an apology for publicly shaming her, as well as insulting her for her looks. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. For starters, I think it's pretty obvious to anybody who listened to the story that you did not insult her on her looks. You only said the color of her dress was out of place, and that literally is her own problem. Also, everybody else could show up with a dress code in mind, so why could your sister-in-law not do the same? Like seriously, that's so irresponsible and that's so weird. She was clearly trying to stand out and upstage you at your wedding. That's such a stupid thing to do, and honestly, I would be really upset as well if that happened to me. So no, I don't think you're the jerk here. It really seems like your sister-in-law was trying to start a fight or somehow shame you for the way that they dressed at your wedding, when honestly, with all things considered, the way she looked at your wedding is completely her fault. My husband is absolutely convinced that I have been cheating on him, but despite the fact that I keep telling him that no, I haven't cheated on him and I never would, he is still convinced that I'm going behind his back. And now he's given me an ultimatum. I can either confess to cheating on him or he's going to leave me entirely. And now I honestly don't know what to do. So I first want to say that this is such a wild situation. I don't even know how to explain it without sounding crazy. My husband and I have been married for 5 years and we don't have any children. There are several issues in the relationship, but they are way too in-depth to get into in this post. My husband has always exhibited some degree of paranoia, but not just about cheating as suggested in the title. However, it has been related to a fear or like this paranoia about cheating on multiple occasions. The other night, my husband got drunk and started telling me that the only possible way to fix our relationship is if I admit that I've done something. He says he knows something is going on, and if I don't tell him what it is, he is going to leave me. He said that he's let me convince him in the past, but that he won't be convinced this time that nothing has happened. It's also very important to note here that obviously I have not cheated or kept anything from him. And I said this to him multiple times. Numerous times when I said that, he would smirk as if he caught me in a lie and say that he can see it and that there's no point in hiding it. We had this back and forth for about an hour, and he kept telling me how good I am at lying and convincing him that I'm not cheating. He kept saying things like, just admit it, as well as also saying, we have no chance of being okay if you don't tell me that you're cheating. Now, I told him I had no idea what to do and that I felt backed into a corner since he was basically telling me I had to lie to him and tell him that I did something that I didn't, or else he was gonna leave me. It was very scary and very miserable. I mean, he was relentless. I said I didn't know what to say, but he just said, yes, you do. And I said, well, you're just completely wrong. I haven't done anything and I have not hid anything from you. He admitted that he had no proof, but he said that it's the truth that I did something. He then said to me, if I've ever been right about anything to do with anybody in any type of relationship that I've ever had with another person, then trust me, I'm right about this one. He also told me that I'm breaking his heart, and if I don't admit it, it's my fault that he'll never be able to trust anyone ever again. I'm completely freaked out and utterly devastated. I can't convince him, even though I can account for everywhere I've been. I mean, I have a very tight schedule that involved me being around other people who could clearly vouch for where I've been and when I've been there. Even if I could, I feel like the way he was talking to me and the hour-long accusations might have changed the way I feel about him. The next day, I told him that even if he does manage to be convinced, I don't know if I will ever get over that conversation and about how he so clearly thinks and feels about me. He still doesn't believe me, but said he'd try to, even though that's what he's done in the past. But trust me, it's never been quite this bad before. Now, given that this topic came up again, I'm fairly certain that even if he tries to believe me, it will only happen again eventually. Ever since that incident, he has hardly been speaking to me, and I honestly don't feel good about it at all. I mean, should I try to keep talking to him? Is there some kind of way for me to get over how badly I feel towards him right now? I honestly feel so crazy, and I now don't know what to do. Wow, what a crazy situation to be in. And I don't say that this sounds crazy in like the hypothetical sense. Like seriously, your husband sounds insane. Like look at his behavior. This guy is utterly convinced that you are cheating on him without having any kind of evidence or anything going on to prove that you are cheating with him. Like he legitimately does not sound well mentally, and in my opinion, this is a massive red flag. Because here's the thing, even if you did lie and say, okay, I cheated on you, whatever, he is then just gonna hold that over your head and try and treat you like garbage for the rest of your life, even if you do decide to stay with him or not. Like this guy seriously sounds like there's something going on in his brain, and that is not something I would take lightly in the slightest. I know if I was in your shoes, there's no way on earth I would put up with this for a single second. Like I am not about to put up with somebody treating me like that. There's no way that's gonna happen. The other possibility is maybe he's the one that's actually doing the cheating. Sometimes from like personal experience from like family members in my own life, it really seems like when the other person is like, oh, you're the one that's cheating, they are clearly just projecting because in reality, they're the one that's cheating. And it's honestly such an awful thing to do, and there's no good reason to treat someone like that. So you know what? I don't blame you for being upset. The way he's acting is incredibly insane. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be very slow to forgive him as well, because he accused you of something absolutely awful, and there is no good excuse for the way he's
she's treating you. Would I be the jerk if I didn't sign my coworker's farewell card after she treated me like garbage right before I was about to clock out? Here's what happened. So I started a new job a month and a half ago. I am still learning a lot as I'm working with completely new systems and protocols. My shift is from 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, with half an hour of unpaid lunch Monday through Friday. My coworker, we'll call her Louise, that's not her real name, works part-time herself, but on days that she's here, we're scheduled to finish at the same time. I usually start to get ready to leave 3 minutes before 4, which includes clearing my desk for tomorrow, logging out of my computer, and collecting my things, all before leaving at 4. Today, I was a few seconds early and was ready to go when Louise stops me. She says to me, "You're leaving early. You're paid to work until 4, but you're always packing up 3 to 4 minutes beforehand. It's as if you hate being here." This took me by surprise, and I thought she was joking because all day I hear her complain about everything, whether it's significant or not. And maybe this was some kind of sarcasm, but she seemed genuinely annoyed with me. I'm not very confrontational, especially when I'm new and I'd rather just not get in trouble so early. So I said to her, "That's not the case at all. I just want to leave on time because if I'm a minute late, I miss the bus and it would make my trip even longer back home." She says to me, "That's your reason? I'm a temporary staff member, but I still work overtime even though I'm not paid. But you are just itching to go. It's really telling of how much you actually like it here." I kind of just stood there waiting for if there was any more she wanted to say, and then she said the following, "But I don't care. I'm leaving next week, so do whatever you want." And then she just carries on passive-aggressively. I ended up just leaving right after that, but this really upset me because I'm trying my best despite not being familiar with anything. I mean, I already feel like an outsider because of others' treatments, and she herself would only ever talk to me if I made a mistake that she wanted to point out or just making me aware of work that I already knew about. If she had the time to notice when I left, I would have also hoped that she would notice that I work throughout lunches, and sometimes I'm not eating at all just to make sure that my work for the day is done and to cut me some slack. I mean, she takes what, 5 to 10 minutes to leisurely walk around, which has nothing to do with her work, all just to make tea multiple times, which clearly takes time away from her actually doing her job. I mean, I didn't bring that up to her because honestly, who cares? And on top of that, she's leaving the company. I honestly want nothing to do with her anymore. I mean, maybe I'll say hello or goodbye, considering the fact that she would go around telling people how rude I am, especially if I decide to just ignore her. But eventually, because she's leaving, a farewell card is being passed around to give to her on the last day. And since we work in the same office, I'm expected to sign and write a nice note. But honestly, after my last interaction, nothing nice seems to come to mind. So would I be the jerk if I didn't sign her leaving card after that? What should I do? Wow, your coworker sounds like a piece of work. She's clearly just a disgruntled employee who's obviously trying to look for faults in others when she's the one doing the exact thing she's complaining about. I can't stand working with people like that, and honestly, it is a blessing in disguise that she is leaving. She's not going to have any sway over how you're perceived in the office, and you won't have to deal with her horrible attitude ever again, which is really nice. But you know what? In my opinion, I think you really should sign that card regardless. Here's the thing, corporate America is all about playing the game. You need to pretend like you're friends with everybody else just to get by. It's an unfortunate thing that you sign up for in any kind of corporate setting, and I really think you should play that game just to try and get ahead. And no, you don't need to mean it. You could write something simple and just leave it at that, even if it's just a complete lie. You could even simply say best of luck to you and then put your name at the bottom of it. Like honestly, it doesn't have to be complicated, but I do think it's a good idea to play the game of the corporate office. It's also important to know that you won't be working with these people for the rest of your life. Like there's a high likelihood you will switch jobs, and you very well could end up in the same office as this Louise lady. And sure, you had a negative interaction in the hallway because she's being a busybody, but you know what? At least you signed her card and wished her well on the way out the door. You could be really nasty about it, but honestly, that's not going to serve you well. She is leaving after all, and you have all your coworkers and bosses to report to who are going to be watching your every move. So I don't think you would be the jerk for not signing the card. Instead, I think this would be very detrimental to your career for choosing not to do it, because at the end of the day, you're the new person at this job, and it really would be in your best interest to start off with a good impression. Am I the jerk for not allowing my husband to take our daughter out of state to visit his parents? Here's what happened. So to start things off, my husband and I have 4 kids together. We have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. In total, there's 1 girl and 3 boys, with the girl being the oldest. My husband has been determined on taking our daughter out of our resident state of New York to visit his parents in Arkansas. I am wholeheartedly wholeheartedly against the idea and have conveyed that repeatedly. My husband says I'm being selfish by not letting him take our daughter to his parents. I have let him and her travel to various other states, but I do not feel comfortable with her going to my in-laws, and I have put my foot down and said no. Now, for some context, my mother-in-law is just awful. She despises me. She has always said that she wished her son married somebody else. She has accidentally texted the family group chat talking garbage about me when that was meant for other members of her family. She also insinuated that I was having an affair with her husband, and this was supposedly because I went out of my way to help him get medical care for his Alzheimer's. She has repeatedly crossed boundaries that I've set for our children, such as no posting them on social media, no mouth kissing or sharing of food or drinks, especially when you have a cold sore. I mean, come on, that should be obvious. And my mother-in-law is not nice to any of my children. Having been in my house for 2 weeks just 3 months ago, not once did she hold either of my youngest children and repeatedly told my oldest kid to go away. Not to mention my mother-in-law is a depressing individual who talks about the death of her loved ones repeatedly. As she held my firstborn baby for the first time, she started sobbing and talked about how she had a stillborn that looked exactly like my baby. Lastly, this woman drinks about 2 bottles of wine a night all alone, and this is every single night. My father-in-law, on the other hand, is amazing. He used to be very loving to our children and would spend the entire summer with us before his illness took over. Now he is nonverbal and very short-tempered. He spanked our 3-year-old during their last visit to our house. And trust me when I say this, we are a very non-spanking household. I grabbed my kids and took them into another room. Obviously, my kid isn't traumatized, but it made me extremely uncomfortable, and I felt like I had to constantly watch my kids when he was around. My husband told me to let it go, since his dad doesn't really understand much at this point. While my boundaries are repeatedly crossed, my husband doesn't necessarily agree. He is much more relaxed and lets many things slide. Needless to say, I don't feel comfortable having my 5-year-old daughter in their home for many reasons. I've told my husband he's welcome to go visit them alone, but I don't want our daughter going with him. He says the visit isn't centered around his parents, that he wants to go show her where he grew up, to which I responded that if that's the case, then we can all go as a family and you can show all of us at the same time. But he said no, because there's always drama with you and my parents. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You are not the jerk. Your husband and your mother-in-law are absolutely the jerks. First of all, the fact that your husband's not supporting you in this decision is honestly disgusting. He really needs to pull his head out of you-know-where and realize that his parents are toxic. Sure, his dad doesn't necessarily know what's going on, and he is very much out of the loop when it comes to understanding his surroundings. I mean, Alzheimer's is a horrible disease, and I don't blame you for feeling some kind of sympathy, but his mother absolutely knows better. Her behavior is disgusting, and I don't blame you for saying, no, you're not taking my kid with you. So seriously, you are not the jerk in this situation. Your husband is being an absolute jerk, and the fact that he's not putting his foot down and defending you more honestly speaks volumes about his character. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.